gosh. Excuse me. Pardon me if I rudely interrupted your quiet afternoon.
No worries.
We got 6 o'clock. And so I guess we will welcome everybody. Are we starting right off with a regular meeting then? Is everybody planning on that? Okay, we'll begin. I welcome everybody that's tuning in electronically and perhaps some in the council chambers. We'll have a pledge of allegiance on this hot summer day. You all stand with me, and Chief, you can demonstrate. Hey, very good. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rory, would you give a roll call, please?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry,
I'm here.
Robinson,
Yep, I'm here.
Glover,
Here.
Brown,
He's coming.
and Gettle.
Here.
Thank you. Chief Thomas, would you start us off with your report? Then we'll go to the fire department.
I will, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Unfortunately, I still don't have our ComStat numbers in yet. I explained that last meeting that with the RMS, or Report Management System update, there was some difficulty in the reloading the system. I still don't have those numbers. However, I do have the preliminary numbers just involving our cases. And having ran those within the last 30 minutes, it shows us for the month of July at 1,076 cases. And looking at previous, in our 2019, we're 1,098 cases. So we're trending, with the exception of 2017, right where we anticipate to be, which is good, all things considered, with the current circumstances of COVID, as well as some of the civil unrest we've dealt with in the recent future. I've responded individually to several council regarding speed complaints, just to let some of you know the status of our stealth unit is on Grant Street right now, gathering some statistics. It's far more effective in gathering stats than our speed trailers, because the speed trailers tend to slow people down when they see them. So, and once it's done with that, I know Councilperson Robinson asked that we look up at Chad Heights Lane. We did a drive-through there. What we will do is reserve the stealth stat to put that up there in the near future and try to gather some more information regarding that area specifically. Just a quick update on 7816 South State Street. Officer Wayne is still working on that. We've got some feedback from Sunrise Engineering on the actual residential structure that's up on the property, as well as UFA gave us a quick report on the condition of the structure, as well as the down structures, and then the obvious fire hazard on the property. So we're still working on. Is that
the one right by the railroad tracks there?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
As far as personnel wise, I explained this to Kane and Matt earlier. I'm going to stop letting our police officers ride their personal motorcycles off duty, because when one gets better, another one crashes. And that happened to one of our officers again. We just got one back from back on duty full time, and unfortunately another officer went down and hurt he's okay. He's got a hurt shoulder. So, it's just summertime activities, motorcycles and fun. Sometimes they conflict with coming back to work at 100%. So we're working through those difficulties. We also had, Officer Lindgren has announced his retirement. He was a previous Midvale Police Department officer, and he's with UPD. For the last few years, he's been working in the White City, or bidding up in the White City area, but he will be retiring at the end of this month. And we also, as mentioned before, Officer Widman has accepted a job with Salt Lake City Fire Department. So, every every police officer wants to be a fireman and every fireman wants to be a police officer. And I'm sure Chief Larson will agree with this. So that's all I have to report. I'll keep my statements short tonight, but if council has any questions for me or comments during their open forum, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Mayor, I couldn't hear you, but I guess I'm up.
I'm just welcoming you back, and it's been such a long time, like 24 hours since I saw you.
Less than that, actually.
It was this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Mayor, council members. It's always good to be with you. My report is short tonight also. I will tell you, Chief Thomas, that I'm glad I have my job right now, and you've got a really tough one. And my hat's off to you, and you've got my utmost respect. I'll have to tell you that. Just a couple of really quick things for everyone. I'll tell you, construction is just absolutely booming in Midvale. I was down around the area with your area fire marshal, Kristen Yee, just looking at some of the projects and things that she's taking care of down there. And things are going really fast. She's doing a really good job on making sure that all the fire protection systems and alarm systems and all those new apartment buildings and all the other buildings that you've got going on over there are installed correctly and that they're tested and commissioned properly when they're ready to open their buildings. So she's just doing a really good job keeping up with all the massive growth that's going on there. And we look forward to supporting continued growth and prosperity down there. You know, it's amazing to me since when I started with Midvale Fire in 2006, just to think of the growth that's gone on down in the river bottoms there since that time. It's just phenomenal and great for Midvale. Dark Horse, the software program that helps us analyze our call volume and call response and where to best place apparatus. If it would be more beneficial to add another crew to a station to help with the calls versus adding another station. That's coming along really well. Our Assistant Chief, Don Burchett, if he hasn't already contacted you, Mayor and Kane, he will be shortly to give a presentation. And
I got an email from him this afternoon.
Okay, great.
To Kane and Matt and Nate, so we'll be setting up a time with him to come and make a presentation and get the council involved and everybody. So
great. I asked him to send me an invite so I could be there also. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Great program. Survey 123 is an inspection program that we're hoping to have in place in a very short time. Get our crews away from doing paper report inspections. This is really going to help us in our analytics for the inspection load and keeping track of the higher hazard businesses and occupancies like the daycares and large warehousing and things like that that we really need to be on top of every year. So that's going to be a great program, and we're moving forward on that really quickly. Peer support program, in light of what happened, losing one of our firefighters here recently. Captain Lane Hilton has some unique training and abilities. He's been put in charge of that peer support program. And I'm going to try and get one of our captains that's involved in that to give a short presentation. It's really great to be able to support our firefighters. They see things that we weren't meant to see sometimes, and sometimes it can be really bothersome. I remember, and I'm sure Chief Thomas can relate to this, a death that I witnessed early on in my career had a pretty significant impact on me. And it would have been great to have a program like that in place back then. So I'm glad that we have that in place here now for our firefighters. The board met this morning. I'll defer to you, Mr. Mayor, if you want to report on anything there, but essentially that's all I have for tonight, unless anyone has a question for me.
Thank you very much, Chief.
You bet.
Before we get any further, I've got to read our mandatory statement here so people understand how they can participate in this meeting. This meeting will be an electronic meeting without a physical location pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-207 as amended by House Bill 2002, House Bill 5002, excuse me. Mayor Robert Hale, as chair of the Midvale City Council, hereby makes the determination that conducting the meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. This determination is based upon the fact that the city is unable to ensure compliance with the guidelines and public health protocols mandated by the state's current risk phase. As restrictions take place for limiting public gatherings, the city wants to make sure everyone interested in participating in city council meeting can do so. The meeting will be broadcast on the following links. There's a YouTube channel. I'm not going to read that. Mixler and city website at midvale.midvalecity.org/how-do-I/listen to public meetings. Public comments are read into the record by city staff during public comments and public hearing portions of the meeting. If you would like to make a public comment, please send an email to Laura Magnus at lmagness@midvale.com. When commenting, please limit your comments to 400 words, which is about 3 minutes reading time. Include your first and last name, and you may include the city of your residence. Include the name of the agenda item so city staff know when you want your public comment to be read into the record. City staff read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes. Your input is important to us, so please keep your comments concise. Thank you. We'll now move to a presentation on the U.S. Census 2020 by Marty Wolford, a special projects coordinator for Salt Lake County Mayor's Office for New Americans. And I got an email today that Utah is still struggling and Salt Lake County is struggling, and I assume Midvale City is struggling to get our census data all wrapped up and in by the end of October now, Marty?
It's moved up. It's now the end of September. So I will give you those updates now. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see. Let's see. So hi, everyone. My name is Marty Wolford, and I work for Salt Lake County in the Office for New Americans. I don't know why my screen is not sharing. You're still seeing my face, correct? Or can you see my presentation?
Your
We can
screen is
see the
up.
presentation.
Oh, you can see it?
Yeah,
I can
census,
Oh,
census
okay.
2020, Midvale City, 818.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's so weird on my end. I have no indication of that. Okay, so I do census outreach and education in the Office for New Americans in the Mayor's administration. So I'm just going to give you some quick updates about kind of where we're at, some timeline changes, and then a status update on Midvale City and how you're doing with participation. So COVID has resulted in quite a few changes. Originally, the census was supposed to be done by now. It was supposed to wrap up on July 31st. So the self-response phase is where we go online or over the phone or return a paper copy of the questionnaire. That was extended to the end of October. And then last week, there was a memo from the White House that said it needs to be done by September 30th. So we were all planning on kind of an extra some time, and then we were told, nope, September 30th. So it's kind of a bit of a scramble right now to get the word out about the census. So what's happening right now is the non-response follow-up. And so that is when people have not done the census and door knockers, census takers, or enumerators come to their door in an attempt to have them complete the census. So that's actively happening. It started on August 11th. So group quarters pretty much, we're talking about nursing facilities, skilled nursing facilities, hospitals with patients who have no usual home, colleges and universities, these kinds of things. So most group quarters were doing an e-response or paper enumeration. So they were sending data in to the Census Bureau. That was supposed to wrap up by June 5th, but now we're looking at September 3rd. So really quickly that will be done. In-person group quarter enumeration. So this is, let me scroll down. So also in that group quarters, that includes jails and prisons. So in-person group quarter enumeration is when someone has opted to not do a data transfer or a paper enumeration. So like at a college, they could say, we just want to do an e-response. We're going to transfer data to you. Or they can say, no, we want you to come to the college and do an in-person enumeration with our students. The data would be better that way. People get to self-identify and respond on their own. And so that will also wrap up by September 3rd. Not a lot of that is happening because of COVID. So you can pretty much assume in-person group quarter enumeration was pretty much kind of halted, and they've had to modify how they're doing that. So service-based enumeration. So this is when the Census Bureau goes to soup kitchens, shelters, and they say regularly scheduled food vans, which we don't really have here in Utah, and do in-person enumerations. So that will happen September 22nd through the 24th. And then counting of people experiencing homelessness. So this will happen September 23rd through the 24th. So census takers will go, so people experiencing homelessness in this category is just people outside who are completely 100% unsheltered, camping, living outside, not in a shelter. So the census workers will go out and count people who are living under bridges and in parks, in all-night businesses to get a count of them. And then enumeration of transitory locations. So this is people who are maybe staying at campgrounds, RV parks, marinas, and hotels as their main residence. And they'll be counting these areas September 3rd through the 28th. So that's just an update on all of those. So you have a sense of when those counts are happening. So now when it comes to statutory deadlines for the apportionment counts, that will be done, those will be submitted December 31st. Congress had requested an extension on that, or the Census Bureau had requested to Congress an extension, which I don't know if it's correct to say that Congress they didn't deny it, because I don't even think it came before them. They didn't meet about it. The memo came out from the administration that they have to have that information by the end of the year. So that's where the October date got moved to September because of this. And then the redistricting data, so all the municipalities are going to receive that by March 31st. So for a second, you were going to receive redistricting information in July, at the end of July 2021, but that's not the case anymore. So Does anyone have any question about that? Just quick timeline update. Okay, great. And I'm going to move on to Midvale City updates. So this is just to show you where I'm getting this data from, because if you find it interesting, you might want to go and look at this on your own. So there's this really long URL, or you can just Google 2020 Census Self-Response Rankings, and it'll take you to this dashboard that I'm about to show you. So this is the Census Bureau's landing page where you can find all of the data I'm about to show you. And so pointing this out so you can just see this is what it looks like. You see the rankings by state, by county, and by city, and by the country. So for the country, we're at 63.9%. Utah is above that, so we are above the average for the nation. Where I'm going to go though, so you know, to the left here, this red arrow for the state, so you select Utah. And then what you'll see under rankings by city and county, it'll update those. And then you can see Midvale is right here at 65.3. So Midvale City is above the national average for participation in the census, which is good news, but it's still quite low for where we want to be. You can see Salt Lake County is at 71%. Okay, so now here is the map of the census tracts within Midvale City. What's pretty cool about this page is you see these different color codings. So, excuse me, the darker purple color on my screen, that's in the 70 to 80% range for participation. You get this lighter blue is about 51 to 56. And then we have this track, which we're going to pay a little bit more attention to in a second. That's this light yellowish orange color. And that's in the 41 to 50% participation. But what I want to point out here is that this page shows you for each track, the total, and then how many people responded on the internet. And this is an interesting thing because you'll see on this next slide, is we kind of zoom in on this track just to see where it's at. Well, it didn't pull it up, but if we were live looking at this, it would show us down the internet response rate, which for this track, I believe is like 35%. And that's alarming, of course, because that's not very many people who are accessing the census online. But so this light color here, it's 45.4% of the residents in that census tract have completed the census. And the internet, 39.7% have done it online. So what we know from that is that the enumerators, the door knockers, they are going to be reaching out to 55% of the households living in this census tract, knocking on their doors and trying to have people do the census with them in person. Now, I'm currently working as a census enumerator, as I know the mayor did in 2010. And I have to tell you, people do not enjoy you knocking on their door, especially during a pandemic. And so it's alarming that many households are going to be visited in this census tract to get a decent response. 2010, it was still really low. It was about 56.2%. And here's that figure. So that census tract is census tract 1124.06. And it's just west of the I-15 between 90th South and Center Street. And I point out, so what I do is I spend a lot of time looking at these different census tracts and trying to decide how can we increase participation without putting all of the pressure on the Census Bureau to do that. We know that the census is not, the Bureau is not the most trusted federal agency right now. There was a proposed citizenship question that was going to be on the census. So there's a really low response rate predicted for Hispanic and Latino households. I think that census tract is probably fairly higher population of Hispanic and Latino households. And so there's a real chance that people aren't going to respond to the census because of distrust. Also, part of the memo that came out from the administration was to exclude undocumented households from those apportionment numbers so that they wouldn't be included in redistricting. And a lot of people have heard that to think, oh, if I'm undocumented, I can't do the census now, which doesn't mean that at all. And it's even more important for people to do the census because the funding is so needed in communities that have low response rates. So that's another part of that low response, is that people are just getting a lot of misinformation. And it would appear that the administration's really trying to discourage participation in the census amongst that particular group. So we are now at the point where we have, 6 weeks until the census is over. And there's kind of ideas of how we can reach people, remind them that the census is happening. A lot of people don't know that it ends on the September 30th. They thought it was the end of July, and then it was October, and now it's September. So of course there's confusion there. What we've done at the county, we have some census banners. You may have seen them outside of City Hall there. I gave some to the mayor. The library has some up that give the information of how to do the census. We have these postcards that we've been passing out at COVID testing locations, which I think is a really good strategy for trying to reach people that maybe haven't participated. This particular postcard goes over that the census is confidential. None of the identifying information will be shared with any government agency. It's just statistics. And then it gives the information on how to complete the census, where to go to do that, in English on one side, Spanish on the other. The other thing that I think really the key players to help us really be successful with the census is working with our community-based organizations who are trusted in communities that have been historically undercounted in the census. And that's, the people of color, Hispanic, Latino, historically have been undercounted. And so I think anything that we can do to partner with them is a really great idea. I know that there is a Catholic church, I think, in that census tract that I pointed out, and I think it's a Spanish-speaking Catholic church, and I think that might be a really great partner to see if they could do, some census outreach after Mass, if they're meeting in person, if they can plug it, if they're online meeting. I just think that that'll be a really trusted source. And then any other community-based organizations that Midvale has a relationship with, I think that would be a really great way to try to just reach a few more people. We have a lot of census swag here still. We have some t-shirts and some mouse pads and some other things that can just be nice giveaways when you're having an event so that people, appreciate the experience a little. But I want people to know I'm a resource, and I'm happy to brainstorm or work, kind of dig a little deeper into some strategic outreach approaches if anyone is interested.
Marty, the schools will be starting up right away. Can we present them, every student, with one of those postcards or something like that at the
Yeah. Do you know,
come out
are they having in-person registration, or are they doing online registration? Do you know?
I do not.
Okay, I know the Census Bureau has had staff at different school districts' registrations. But yeah, I think we can definitely get those postcards. Maybe send me an email, a follow-up with a number. Which district, are you a Granite solely, or are you several districts?
We're in Canyons
Canyons
exclusively,
exclusively. Okay,
probably a nominal number that, like our homeless shelter, they go to all school districts in the valley. So the homeless shelter would have Murray and Salt Lake and Granite and Jordan and
Yeah.
Canyon.
the shelter should,
Mayor, I thought the homeless shelter split their elementary between East Midvale and Midvale. Are you talking like high school, junior high?
Well, we have school buses that come in there and take kids wherever their home school was before they became homeless. And so, yeah, the majority probably go to 2 schools in Midvale, but the last count I had in the last school year, there were 13 school buses that came in there, hauling
Got-
people to different places. So there's a spattering going everywhere.
God, I didn't know that, but that makes sense. They probably want to try to keep things normal for those kids. So I get it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just knew that there was
No,
a split.
Good question. That's the kind of question we need on how to get a hold of people. And certainly the elementary schools in Midvale, the East Midvale and Mid Valley and Midvale Elementary, all 3 serve a high number
yeah.
of Hispanics and people in the district that you are pointing out has the lowest participation typically.
Right.
We
Yeah.
need that coverage.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And just a reminder that the Midvale homeless shelter would be counted under group quarters. So that
Right.
will be counted a more contained counting. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, this is Laura. Can I add a few things?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So one of the biggest challenges for all of the cities is we really planned on doing a lot of our push during our big events. And obviously we've had to cancel those big events. So we're all trying to rethink of new ways, and we really appreciate Marty. The school district has this nailed down. They're doing a really good job. They've passed out those cards. They're really hitting it home. They're doing a great job. One of the things that we could do, Marty, is the seniors, when they pick up their lunches every day, we can get out there and give them the cards. And one of the biggest challenges we have in Midvale is 14% of our community does not have access to the internet. And we had planned having access at City Hall, at the library. I know the library does have access, but all the access points that we had planned on doing, like the senior center, we haven't been able to do. So what have you seen for access to internet? Because I think that's one of the biggest barriers to completing the census in our community.
Yeah, so anyone who didn't complete it online got a paper form. So, and they can still do it over the phone. And so I think really ramping up communication about doing it on the phone,
Okay.
talking to an enumerator, or returning, that's not too late to turn that paper survey back, to mail it back, that those are all still doable. If they've lost their envelope, an enumerator who comes to their door has some of those self-pay or already free to return envelopes, so they could just get one from them. The other thing is, so the senior centers do have some banners. They all should have banners up, but we can work with the census, the local census office, and they have their recruitment assistants are now doing census questionnaire assistance. So they do it from a distance. The person doesn't touch the tablet, they enter it for them. So we could do, that's what I think would work really well at maybe that Catholic church, maybe, where there's not 1,000 people, but like 20 or 30 people coming to get their lunch. They could be there for a few days, and we can schedule all that in advance So anything that you think like this would be a good place that they could be at. I know they're at some of the registrations. They're already popping up all over the place. So it's always hard to know where the Bureau already is at. But those are things that we can make happen. So if you have anything that you're like, you know, all these families are, I see them waiting at a clinic, or you know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
know like the refugee service organizations have vaccination days, and then they have all these people on site for it. And I'm like, that's an audience waiting to be approached about doing the census. You know, it's like, if you have a captive audience, then let's like try to take advantage of it. And so I'll have a couple computers from the library with internet, so we can be there with the internet. We can always have, like, if you have a phone, it could be like you can come to City Hall and use the phone to do it, you know. Meals on Wheels is all distributing lots and lots of outreach materials and telling people to use the phone or kind of guiding them that direction. Really how it happens, it's like every day somebody calls and says, can you be here tomorrow to do outreach at this? And then we just like, between me and Salt Lake City, we just like spring into action and show up. So we have interns starting next week. So we have more flexibility starting next week. So really, like, if you know of something happening and know the Census Bureau isn't already scheduled, then let me know and I'll do all I can to be there and get people to do the census.
Okay, thank you, Marty.
I know that Copperview Recreation Center distributes food every Saturday morning around 11 o'clock. And that would be a good place.
Yeah, yep, that's great.
How about the LDS churches and Spanish branches and things like that in this area?
Yeah, I mean, the church has sent out a lot of communications, and they've been doing a lot of work around it. So I know they're actively participating in census outreach. I don't think they're going to organize any events to assist with doing the census, but they are promoting it. So I do think, though, that the Pacific Islander and the Hispanic wards, we probably could get a little bit more targeted with some outreach and some assistance there. Yeah.
Right. Do you need assistance in locating those in Midvale?
Yeah, that would be great. I do work quite closely with Juan Becerra from the church.
Jose's.
So he could help as well. He does like their government relations communications stuff. So I know he's doing a lot of work with the Spanish speakers. The other thing is we're launching a campaign with Univision that'll start next week till the end of September with lots of influencers, some community health workers, so there'll be lots and lots of spots on channel 30, is it 32, I think, for the census as well. So it's kind of like our last ditch effort there. Like, we have some money left over, so that's where we're putting it all. And I think Juan Becerra will be one of the featured. People are trying to get Bishop Solis from the diocese, Consul Borjon from the Mexican consulate. So anyone, if you have like a really strong, well-known community leader that you know of, you can refer names our way and we can refer them to do a PSA.
I just had a groundbreaking for I Care for Kids clinic that's going to be giving and providing eyeglasses for children up to, I think, 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's at 6811 South State Street. And that may be a contact there that could help distribute and make aware of Hispanic and other poor families within Midvale and the whole surrounding part of the valley.
Yep, I think clinics will be a really important outreach tool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for letting me present, Mayor. And if anyone wants to reach out, my email is mwolford, wool like the fabric, Ford like the car, at slco.org.
Somehow that creates a mental image that doesn't compute. A wolf.
Wool Ford, it's a compound word.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, going into public comments at this time. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for public hearing on the agenda may submit their comment via email to lmagnes, that's lmagnus@midvale.com, or on the Midvale City Facebook page. Prior to the completion of this portion of the meeting, items brought forward to the attention of the City Council will be turned over to staff to provide a response outside of the City Council meeting. Laura, are we aware of public comments that have arrived?
I do not have any at this point, Mayor.
Okay. We will next go then to council reports and begin with Councilmember Sperry.
Just one thing this evening, Mayor. Last Saturday, we did a small service project with a group of 10 and 11-year-old boys. It was from a soccer team. And we went down to the city cemetery. I got some information from Glenn, and he told us just a technique to use to try to find some old headstones. And the boys primarily were just cleaning off some of the headstones. But then they did spend a little time looking for headstones, and they found two.
All right.
And they uncovered those. They were both over 100 years old and had grass completely grown over. So they were excited.
Wow, that's great.
So Glenn has those pictures.
To them,
and
pass
again,
on our thanks.
Yeah, Glenn, thanks again for just giving us the information so they could participate in that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. By the way, Quinn, I will be out of town night, Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. So if anything big comes up, you're it.
Okay.
Council Member Heidi Robinson.
I just had a quick thing that came up on the Midvale residents Facebook page. I guess our meetings are conflicting with the school board meetings.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the residents are having some complaints about that because obviously everything going on with school right now, parents really want to know what's going on. I didn't really know. I realized that if we move our meeting, it probably conflicts with other departments like the planning commission and all that. But I at least thought I would bring it up so that people knew that it's becoming an issue.
I think Kane can address that. We had a discussion, maybe that same resident, it was about 3 weeks ago. We talked about this, didn't we, Kane?
Yeah, in the beginning in 2006, when the school district was formed, all 4 cities informed the school district that we held our council meetings on Tuesday nights. So all 4 cities are in the same situation. And the district still chose to have their meetings on Tuesday. That might have been for a reason, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that keeps the politicians out, see?
I think so. But they hold theirs, I believe their meeting starts at 5 o'clock. So it's usually an hour ahead of ours. Yeah, it would be difficult for us to move. I think it'd be difficult for all the cities to move their meetings, but that's the situation through all 4 cities.
Okay,
Kane,
thanks, Kane.
wouldn't it be pretty easily to do just to, instead of the first and third, do the second and fourth Tuesdays? I mean, it doesn't make one difference to me. It's still 2 Tuesdays out of the month.
That's doable, definitely doable. If that's what you want to try, we can do that.
rather than moving the date entirely.
I think it's just interesting. I just don't know why they don't move to the 2nd and 4th. I mean, we're the city entity, they're the school board. I don't know. I think it's interesting that people are coming to us, asking us to change it and just sort of saying, well, let's work around the school board when, we have a lot more moving parts with our, various city entities. I don't know. I think they should be accommodating towards us. That's my opinion on that.
Who has the bigger dog, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
We can actually try to go opposite Tuesdays if that would be something the council would like us to look into.
I'm not opposed to changing it to the different Tuesdays, but I'm not opposed to it.
We'll look at that and we'll get back to you on the schedule.
Thanks, Kane.
You bet.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Councilmember Paul Glover, please.
The only thing I have tonight is to let you know that West Nile virus is active in Salt Lake County. They found pools of mosquitoes that have had it. So just let you know that be careful, use protective measures. And if you have any standing water around your house, get rid of it and be careful. That's all done for tonight.
Thank you, Paul. Councilmember Ryan Brown.
Yeah, I just have a few things. We received an email about that ranked choice voting. I would definitely support getting that individual to come and workshop with us. It definitely seems like the future, especially after the last sort of Republican governor race. I think there's an appetite for both parties at this point to at least look into it. I think it would be a good idea to bring up again. I know we brought it up 2 years ago and it was sort of new. A couple of cities have been successful with it. I think it would be good to try to be in the front runner in one of those changes. So yeah, if we can get that in September, I'd appreciate that.
Well, if I can just comment on that, I think when we talked about it before, we weren't opposed to it, but we were saying when the county is ready to do that, since they run our election, because if we go to ranked voting and they're not ready, we have to do our own election, and that really increases the cost.
For sure, Quinn. I didn't feel like we didn't punt on it 2 years ago. We just were not ready. Yeah.
So
yeah,
sorry, just to jump in, Rory and I talked about this afternoon, and she's going to check with the county recorder and see what their estimate is on when they would be ready to do ranked choice voting. And yeah, by all means, that was kind of the consensus from the council, is that once the county was able to do that or handle that, then we would look to go to that.
Okay.
I mean, and I agree with Brian. I think that is the future. So I think it'd be good for us to do it as soon as we can, as soon as the county's ready.
There's some feedback in the newspaper from, I believe it was Vineyard, who was one of the 2 cities in Utah County, and it took them 11 rounds to make their decisions using ranked choice voting, which took it way into the next day. So, there's some drawbacks also that have to be worked through to get that all slicked out until you got a winner.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't think there's a perfect system. Yeah, there's a positive and negative. I just think when they see 33% of the votes gets to be the governor pick, people find that unappealing, right? Where ranked choice would get it to the first person above 51% or above 50%, right? So, but again, that could happen. You could have rounds, and sometimes you wouldn't. And it could be an experiment that lasts 10 years and people go back. But I think, there's just enough appetite for it. If the county's ready, we should look into it.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
if I can just let you know, I did hear back from Sherry Swenson today. They are currently out for bid on new voting equipment, which would support or accommodate the ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
They're going to present that to the county council next week. They have not, they're hoping they're going to still fund it, but they're not positive.
Okay.
So it's still kind of iffy right now. So if they do fund it, then they will have to go through and test it and everything else. So, but it is in the works.
Great. If it looks like it will be funded and stuff, I wouldn't mind getting, that discussion going for, our next, election cycle, but getting the discussion moving sooner than later, I would prefer.
Yes, I asked Sherry to please keep me informed.
I appreciate it, Roy.
Brian, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
About ranked choice voting. So what people often forget, and the people who will come talk to us will tell us it's great, and here's why you should choose ranked choice voting. But what people often forget is with ranked choice voting, you eliminate the need for a primary. So instead of having an election in August and November, you have one election either in August or November. So, hopefully if we do it, the county will allow us to get out of our contract with them to run our election. And Utah County has the desire to help cities, and they have the equipment to do a ranked choice voting election right now. And they've said in the past that they'd be willing to help any city who wanted to do it.
So yeah, let's look into that some more. I have a few other things. Kane, Utopia, over by the Tyler Library, someone found a Utopia. I don't know if it was like a door hanger or what, where it's, Utopia is coming, everyone sort of get excited about it, which is overall really good news. However, it's extremely frustrating for, a partner that's one of our biggest bond payments, who I've asked, I feel like I ask every other month, hey, can we get an update on how this is going with Midvale in that area specifically? I feel like they're just not great partners for us. And, if they would have told me 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago that they were, they're going to start putting door hangers out early August, I would start telling people ask me all the time, but I mean, part of their take through rate or pull through rate's problem is they are absolutely terrible at communicating. So I don't even know if that door hanger is legitimate or where it was found. So I really would like to push on getting someone from Utopia to come and tell us what is going on in Midvale. For how much money we spend, I'd like to know more.
Actually, I scheduled them for a workshop at your next meeting. So I'm going to have Utopia come and update the council on where we're at next meeting. A lot depends on they put in the pole attachment agreements, and they put those in ahead, and whoever owns the pole can take up to, well, I think 6 months to approve it. And so sometimes they all come in at once, and they'll come in 3 months, and sometimes they take the full 6 months to approve. And so when those do come in, then they start moving on the installation. But I agree, they probably ought to give us some notice for areas that they're moving into.
Yeah.
And I don't, as far as I know, unless they talked to Matt, they didn't talk to me about through Utopia, but maybe UIA said something to Matt in your meeting. I don't know whether they talked to you or not.
They did not.
So we'll bring that up with them.
Okay. Thanks.
They'll be at your next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Kane. And my last question is, there's a KSR article that came out like today or yesterday that the corona was found in the first mink cases in parts of Utah. I know we have that mink farm that's borders Midvale. I know that they don't have actual minks there. I think that's where they process the food. I just want to make sure that's correct, or is there also minks in that location? Do we know? That property to the south of Public Works?
As far as I know, they don't have any animals there. All their animals are gone. All they do is process feed there for the mink farm.
Yeah, because I guess that's one of the other animals that can carry it. And so so I wanted to make sure we're like prepared if there was, but if there's not, then, I want to be able to say that, we don't have those animals that close.
Yeah, they were targeted by PETA several times, and actually they've tried to burn them out of there. I'm not accusing PETA, but somebody tried to set that place on fire 2 or 3 times. So they've moved all their animals out of there. They don't all they have in there now is they process feed.
Okay. All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Councilmember Dustin Gettle, please.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. First, when I first moved here and heard that there was a mink farm in Midvale, I thought it was a family whose last name was Mink who owned a farm in Midvale. So just a light note. Otherwise, I sent around an email today from an interested party who wanted to come speak about a cannabis pharmacy in Midvale. Then I got some information from Chris and an email chain from Matt that indicates there's some interest from other proprietors of that same type of business that might already be in the works, or at least a discussion being had. So I thought that might be a very good topic for our next workshop because, I think speaking for myself, can't speak for the other council members. It seems like an industry that we would be wise to be in front of here in Midvale so that we don't lose out on those potential industries to other neighboring cities.
What specifically were you wanting to discuss, like a rehashing or rediscussion of our?
Yeah, we had a discussion about it. It was kind of lumped in with specialty tobacco shops, which, Councilmember Sperry and we raised some issue with kind of lumping those two together. So I would like to have more of a discussion on what we can do in Midvale, what some of the emails that I saw today, there were already some concerns about proximity, those types of things that I think that we would be wise as council members to know about and to see if there are any proximity issues we can address now so that when someone comes to Alex with plans for an actual pharmacy, that we don't have to, wait 18 months before we hash out an actionable plan.
Okay.
So, it doesn't have to be our next meeting. I know that's pretty quick turnaround, but if there are some, Chris mentioned a proprietor who, had very specific wants on Main Street. The one, Matt, that you talked about looks like they wanted, I don't know, I wasn't following the email chain. Are you saying that part of Union Park is in Sandy where he wanted to have the?
Yeah, let's talk about the specifics of that particular situation, maybe offline, but
Okay.
I'm conceptually, sorry, I just want to make sure that we're not discussing anything that might be of proprietary nature on that. But we could definitely be ready for that meeting, and we can go over the map and we could talk about what our ordinance is and then what the state allows. For the most part, our ordinance is a reflection of the state code, but we can definitely have that.
Well, and the other thing, I know there might be a council member or two who aren't comfortable right now with, this type of operation. And I want to make sure that, we have as united of a voice as possible for, the very real possibility that something like this is going to want to come to Midvale, in the next calendar year. So that's my main objective with that. So if it's a policy discussion, that's great too. If it's a specifics discussion, that would be even better. Okay. And I know I sent the email today late in the day, but I have mentioned it a couple times in the past. All 5 of us council members have day jobs that we work morning to mid-afternoon and evening. So it is very difficult for us to get, just a few hours notice about an event that folks in the city might know about much more in advance than one day. So, I'm disappointed that, I don't know that I'm going to be able to make the groundbreaking ceremony tomorrow for the Zions Bank project. That's pretty disappointing to me. Last month, there was a school, I think it was the middle school open house that we were given the notice the day before of the event. And just as much as possible, hopefully we can prevent that in the future, because I know I'm speaking for myself and others on this one who may not want to speak up, but it is very difficult for us who have other jobs and obligations during the day to, get the time off or drop everything to do something that we would, I mean, obviously, if I had time to plan, I would definitely be there. It's across the street from me, but, given so little notice, it's difficult to back out of commitments I've already made.
Hey, and if I can just follow up on that, Nate, could you clarify? Because when I read the notice, I thought it was we could only show up in person if we were specifically invited, and the invitation that we received as a council was to participate in the virtual one, right? Not be in person.
Yeah, that's correct. It's just a virtual one.
Okay. Because I mean, I would agree with Dustin. I think many of us would like to be there in person, but I think they're trying to keep the numbers small, and they have not invited us to be there in person. So, okay, thanks.
Which, yeah, Quinn, and that's true. But even a virtual event, I
get what you're saying. I just didn't want any of us that could make it to show up, and the people from Zion's are like, yeah, you're not supposed to be here.
Yeah. Well, and now let's, if we can, talk for a moment about, I mean, it's a project in our city, and we're not invited to the live in-person event. I think that that's a little strange, to put it politely. But that's not a discussion for you, Matt, or you, Kane, or you, Mayor. But I do think it's a bit short-sighted for them not to invite the city that has given them great deference for the project that they're currently undertaking.
Just a little background on that, council member. We didn't get the invite to the virtual ceremony until today, and I think Nate got that out as soon as we got it. None of us are going to be there. The only person from the city that's going to be there is the mayor, and then the Gardner Company, which is a large company, and I think we work for probably a half a dozen individuals on this. None of them are going to be there, so they're really limiting both through Zion's and the Gardner Company how many people are. In fact, we understand it's only going to be about 10 people. So I feel bad myself. A lot of us have worked very hard on this project, as you have, and it is what it is. I guess we'll be there virtually and support the mayor. But yeah, I'm not real happy about it myself, but that's the way it is.
The whole thing has just left a very sour taste in my mouth this afternoon.
Yeah, especially since they can only have 2 elected officials on top of that without like making a quorum or something. So if they're like worried about like this huge group of gathering, adding two council members and Kane and Matt and Chris Butte or Laura, adding 5 from the city that's housing them shouldn't have been that big of a burden. I definitely do not think.
And having been back there, there's plenty of open space for people to very effectively and safely social distance. But that's an issue for another person and day. So if we could, because I know, it's not the first time that even an event like this, virtual event, that we've gotten very little notification on. So again, if we could just take a look at that and let us, the council, know further in advance, that'd be great.
Noted. We will do that.
Thank you. And again, you're supposed to do something funny, serious, funny. I don't have anything else funny. I already did the mink farm joke. So that's it for me.
I think the saying funny, serious, funny that'll count.
Okay.
Thanks, Dustin. For my report, I just got some things that the State Homeless Fund the state fiscal year, which I think begins in October, doesn't it? It's kind of a different calendar year. For FY22, so it's still a year away, they have reduced our funds, I guess everybody's funds, for the homeless work that we do. The year that just finished, we had $1.38 million, and we expended 100% of that. The current year we're in, we get $1.3 million, so there's a reduction of about 84,000. And this is FY21 for the state. And FY22, Midvale and South Salt Lake combined only got 3.1 million, and our share of it is 1,035,165. So we're down another 265,000. So we're going to do some work and see if we can get that boosted back up, because we do not want to reduce the policing and support for our homeless shelter that UPD provides. The Unified Fire Service Area, which generally provides the buildings for the fire department, has set aside this morning $1 million for a company called Construction Consultant Company. They will be working up the details on, I believe it's 5 new fire stations within UFA. And Station 125 in Midvale is one of those. So this process is rolling forward, and we should be getting, as Chief Larson mentioned, we should be getting a demonstration of the new software called Dark Horse that helps plan more concise areas within geography that UFA serves, where calls come from, travel restrictions, all sorts of software conditions are built into it. And we'll be looking at a demonstration of that very soon from Dark Horse and UFSA. So we'll keep you apprised of that. And when it gets scheduled, we're hopefully we'll get it in a workshop. Also, we need to have a citizen representative on the UFA Strategic Planning Committee. We're going to have one of our staff members, I believe it's Matt Dahl, but they want to have also a citizen that can help out in the strategic planning for Unified Fire futures. So if you or anyone you know would be interested in that, would you please drop me an email that I can forward to them, and they can get selected or be interviewed and one of them selected. So if you would please make note of your citizens who would like to get involved in civic work. That's a citizen representative on the Strategic Planning Committee of Unified Fire. I'd appreciate some input there. Okay, that concludes my remarks. So we'll turn it over to City Manager Kane Loader.
Thanks, Mayor. I've only got a couple of things. One, and both of mine are light-hearted, I guess, is what you call. The winter coats that the Employees Association has been working on for all the employees and elected officials are in. They're getting those, the embroidery done on those, and we were hoping to pass them out tonight because we knew that you'd need them tomorrow with the 100-degree temperatures. But you're going to have to wait until the next meeting, which is the first meeting in September. I believe they'll have those ready and we'll be passing those out.
Hey, Kane, I had a great grandmother that wore black and lots of petticoats, summer and winter. She claimed it kept the heat away from her body. So maybe it's a true fact.
Yeah, I'd rather not try that. And then we've got a second request from the Canyon School District from the foundation to put a golf team in their tournament on September 23rd, representing Midvale City. Are any of the council members available to play in that tournament on the 23rd?
Kane, I'll be available for it if we field the team.
Okay.
I wish I could, but I can't with my knee surgery.
The 23rd of September, so you said?
23rd of September, correct.
I would be willing.
Okay, there's two. Quinn?
Sorry, I'm checking my calendar. What was the time again?
It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I'm out. I got a deposition that day.
What do you charge?
Well,
Quinn?
we'll put a team
What's that?
together, finish it up.
What do you charge
Mayor,
with?
anybody else interested? We'll put a team together and I'll get you the information. It's on the 23rd at 8 o'clock, and I believe it's Wasatch State Park.
Kane?
Yes.
So for the other two, you'll open that up to employees, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Kane, are you interested yourself playing?
Yeah, I'll play.
Okay, good.
I can hack.
Just so everyone,
I hear Kane walks 18. He doesn't take the cart, right?
just so
Yeah, I'm
everyone
gonna
knows,
walk.
Kane is an amazing golfer, no matter what he tells you.
Yeah, right.
No, you were very, very good last year.
Well, that was lucky then. Yeah, it's Wasatch Mountain State Park, September 23rd at 8 o'clock is registration. The shotgun starts at 9 o'clock shotgun starts. So we'll get to take care of that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Kane. We'll now turn to department reports, and we'll have community development and RDA report beginning first with Nate Rockwood. Nate?
Okay. Mine will be really, really quick. Just an update. We're continuing to follow the Salt Lake County grant for small business grants that have come out. They continue to change some of the criteria on that. So we're just going to keep following that and keep small businesses as up to date as we can. Some that may have not qualified might qualify as they change these requirements around. So we'll make sure we're keeping people aware of that. Jordan Bluffs continues to develop or move forward with all the development. So Homes project should be started underway next week. Engineering staff has been working on getting that ready to go. Also, just planning, engineering, and the RDA staff have been working quite hard on designs project and all of the development that's going on in Jordan Bluffs. And they've been very diligent in returning, reviewing plans and keeping that on schedule and on track. And that's been difficult, but our staff has been doing an excellent job on that. And the last thing is the Main Street CDA. The RDA staff has been working very hard on that as well, and we're ready to start rolling out the budget and the program on that. So be looking for some emails from us on Main Street improvements. We have a plan on how to roll that out with council. There's several components of that that'll be coming up. So you'll be seeing those emails in the next day. That's all the report that I have today.
Thank you, Nate. Okay, we'll move next to Administrative Services Report. Kyle Maurer.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick update for you. So I switched the report up a little bit this month, so I won't be having the normal stats, but I thought we would just go over some of the things that are happening in my departments. So as you may know, in the Justice Court, they've been following the state's pandemic response plan and their phases, which is separate from the state's plan. They have a completely separate plan. So all of the state right now, but Daggett County is in the red phase. And what that means is the courts are still performing their mission critical functions, but all hearings are remote unless, and this is out of the pandemic response plan, there's an exigent circumstance, and I probably didn't say that correctly. But the judge may continue matters except for in custody criminal cases. What the court has been doing in anticipation of moving to the next phase, which would be yellow, is they have created and submitted and had accepted by the Administrative Office of the Courts a risk phase response plan. So this outlines what the court does in the different phases. So of note, so in-person hearings can begin again when the court is at the yellow stage. And we will need 14 days of steady or decreasing COVID-19 numbers in order for us to be considered for the yellow stage. And most likely it would be at a county-wide level, not a city level. And the state would need to give final approval before any move to the next phase. So as mentioned, they are continuing all their mission critical functions. The court is required to be open Monday through Friday. So because City Hall is closed on Friday, they are only available by electronic means, so by phone, email, example. All of the court staff is still working remotely on Fridays. I did talk with our Justice Court Administrator, and she's only seeing about 10 to 15 walk-ins per day. So most people are communicating and interacting with the court remotely. What the court has done to facilitate video conference trials, since we can't have those not trials, but hearings, since we can't have those in-person hearings, is they have set up a computer in a conference room in the lobby for remote conferencing. So people who don't have access to the internet or don't have reliable internet can come in and use that machine. And of course, the court has been encouraging use of phone and email communications to communicate with them. I did want to update you a little bit on the CARES Act projects that we had discussed probably over a month ago. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory, like PPE and sanitation. We're purchasing those as needed. We have purchased additional plexiglass barriers for community development in the courts, and those have been installed. We had discussed Unified Fire and Unified Police that they would be requesting expense reimbursements for costs incurred. We have received an invoice from UFA for about $51,000, and then UPD has sent us an estimate, so we would be able to budget for that. And then on our remote work technology, most of the items have been received by IT. I should have shared some of the pictures of all of the equipment downstairs in IT. With the big exception of the laptops, most of the laptops aren't here. Those are on back order, so IT's hoping the next couple of weeks they can get those. It's a heavy lift for our IT department, and I know Dan's on the call. He's the one handling most of that configuration, so he's working on that, and then the IT department's working on a take-home policy to ensure employees know what their responsibilities are with this equipment. As we saw last week, the chamber upgrades were substantially completed last week. Of course, there was always glitches with a new system, and we did see those. Luckily, in my opinion, they were minor. So they're still working on that configuration and fine-tuning. And then on the phone system replacement and the electronic signature software, both of those, I've been working with our great IT staff who have helped narrow down some options, and we've narrowed down some choices. So we're going to have an additional meeting with senior staff and IT to discuss those further. And then the bill payment system, we had discussed that Express Bill Pay definitely let us down during the pandemic in March when City Hall was closed. I am working on an RFP to look at possible other bill payment providers with that. And then an HRIS, which is an HR information system, and grammar redaction software. So we're still looking at options and next steps on that. One of the major things is we had discussed possibly implementing community development software, a more holistic solution for the community development department. I've spoken, of course, with the community development director, and I've also spoken with one of the major software vendors. And we feel this project would be such a major undertaking, we wouldn't be able to get it done well in the amount of time we have left. So we've actually transitioned that project into a needs assessment and hardware analysis. So it'll identify what our current IT deficiencies are, both hardware and software, and then help us create a plan to fill those deficiencies. So moving forward, we could have a roadmap of how to improve our information technology within the city. We also discussed plea and abeyance software, and that was more of a high level idea at the time. So we are going through first is an analysis of documenting what the Justice Court would be looking for in that software. I've been working with our Justice Court administrator on listing those steps out and then working with IT on the next steps for that. And then finally, we had discussed possible economic development projects. As Nate had mentioned, the county has released a second phase of their grant program, which opened up more businesses to being eligible and more types of expenses. So that threw a wrench into some of our ideas. So we're still looking into possible development projects. In addition, there has been talk with the forced stimulus that is currently being discussed at the federal level. There might be some options of us either having an extension on time to spend these funds or loosening what these funds can be spent on. So there's a lot of balls up in the air on that one that we're currently monitoring. And then finally, I did want to give you an update on utility billing. We did begin non-payment disconnections again on August 11th. This was a hard decision to make, both by utility billing staff and then by senior staff, and of course the mayor. We ended up disconnecting 53 customers after multiple collection attempts. And then we also did door hangers for an additional 44. Some of the reasons why we started disconnections again is between February and May, we had an 80% increase in the number of accounts that were delinquent. One of the major things is our bond covenants require we do disconnects if we're past due. So we definitely want to be in compliance with our bond covenants. Of note, utility billing, we have been more liberal than we usually are in making payment arrangements and trying to stretch those payments out. I did speak with our great utility billing clerks and then our treasurer this week, and we didn't have anyone that was disconnected we weren't able to make an arrangement for. So we're trying to increase our outreach so we're not having to disconnect as many people. We definitely would rather work with people up front to get them caught up rather than disconnect them.
Kyle, just
sure.
real quick, didn't we make a decision as a council to stop those disconnections back when the pandemic started?
We did, and then the mayor did sign an update to our emergency order that would start allowing disconnections again.
Okay. I mean, since we've had so many council meetings recently, I definitely would have liked that to come up before the council before we started doing disconnections again.
Okay, it's noted. Finally, I did want to give you an update. So we're on our second year of our meter change out program. So we will be swapping out approximately 1364 meters, actually exactly not an estimate. We've got about 212 that have already been completed. Of note, we have another year of this change out program, and utility billing is working with GIS to automate the change out process to hopefully make it go faster. So right now, what happens is when we get the change outs back from the contractor, our utility billing department and treasurer have to manually swap those meters out of the billing software. So of course, that's a time consuming process. And then on the corner of the screen, that is a map that's generated by GIS. So thank you, GIS department, showing where those meter changeouts are going to occur. So I'll keep you updated on the meter changeout program as it goes on. So I wasn't done. I have one more. Sorry. The IT department's been really busy, so I did want to give them credit for some of the things they're doing. We mentioned the chamber upgrades and then the CARES Act projects. In addition, due to the virtual city council and planning commission meetings, the IT department has had to increase the number of staff helping to moderate those from 1 to 2 for the council. And then before, they weren't actually actively involved in the planning commission meeting, so they've had to be involved there too. They're also working on wireless access point switch replacement. So that's what guides all of the wireless access within City Hall. The nice thing with this is it will have new technology that will work with future wireless products. And these access points were due for replacement since they haven't been replaced since the City Hall building was built. And then they've been working with our document imaging system. And then the major project that they're doing over the next few months is they're doing server software upgrades. So those will take a couple hours. They'll be working after hours for a few months to get those done. So that is all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
I just want to kind of piggyback on what Dustin said on these disconnects. I mean, if from a city, we need to for some reason or another, but the fact that we voted and I think we made a motion on it and voted on it, definitely should have come back to the city council to probably vote on when that ended. And I would like to go back to that, or if there's a reason for that. I'm really confused because I've been telling people that shouldn't be happening because we voted on it. Can we talk about this a little bit more before we kind of just move past it? So
well, I'll just say real quick, I agree with Councilmember Brown, and I don't think that we should be doing disconnects for delinquent accounts. You know, especially, you know, we are still in a pandemic where a lot of people are still at home and thus using more water.
The speaking first to the reason for doing it and then coming back to the process. A big part of the issue just happened to be that we were, Kyle, what was how much were we in arrears in total?
It was over 100,000.
And the thought process being one of, we were still sending out notifications to people to make those payments. And the thought is that, and it seems to be the case, that some additional work with them was necessary in order to get people to be compliant with making their payments. And because of that significant amount of money that was not going into the utility account, we thought that it would be more appropriate to try to deal with it now than when some of these accounts were in a situation where they were never going to be able to pay them back, and the negative impacts that would have on our utilities enterprise funds. In addition to that, there were included in that people who had been in arrears prior to COVID. And there were, anyways, a variety of different situations. And so while it is true that it is possible that there were people who were affected because of COVID, not going to deny that, there was a lot of other people with different situations that we also knew were in that group. And we thought that this would be the appropriate way to make sure that they began to take these payments seriously again.
Was it an executive order or was this a council? I can't remember.
It was an executive order, which is, so the change was made through an executive order, and just essentially an amendment to the executive order that the mayor made. And that all being said, it doesn't change the fact that I should have brought it up to you previously.
I just feel like I'm put in a kind of weird spot because I just didn't know that switched. And I have told people that that's something we did. Like I've actively had neighbors ask me about that probably in the last 3 weeks, where I said, you know, the city has done this, which you know, yeah, I definitely, I can talk to those people again, but I don't know. We got to handle kind of those things a little bit differently going forward so we can not be in the same situation, you know?
And I think that I think the important part too is that if you have a conversation with anyone who is concerned with this change, that they just need to get in touch with our utility billing department and see what we can figure out with their specific situation. As Kyle said, we were able to work out some arrangements with some of the folks that we were dealing with. I was downstairs as some of the folks who were having issues with this came in, and like I said, they are not all coming from the same situation, and sometimes this is, even before COVID, this was a necessary step in order to make sure that those that can pay do, and that's part of the situation here.
But the other thing I would add to that, Matt, is we did some research to find out what surrounding communities were doing and other utilities. And we basically followed suit with the surrounding communities. And the other thing to point out, we substituted a discontinuance of service program with a very lenient payment program. And as you can tell, that's been successful in that fact that we haven't turned anyone off yet. Well, one person, I guess.
And if we've moved to something, yeah, that's a lenient payment program or something, that also sounds pretty acceptable. I guess my point is, I wish I would have known about it.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I would just echo, just let us know if that's going to happen. I don't take issue with the decision to start or what was done, especially given the various factors that were considered. So I'm fine with the process that is now in place, but just the information, the heads up, so that as residents reach out to any of the council members, that we're on the same page as the city staff. I think that's, for me, that's the main concern there.
And just while we're at it, it just makes me wonder now what else might be lingering out there that, we decided during the time of March to present that, we might not know that we've done away with, or is there anything else other than utility billing? Because I know, it was part of the mayor's executive order, but we as a council, mayor included, mayor being a member of the council, we discussed that policy direction in a meeting, and we decided that we, the council members who spoke up about it, did not want to see those disconnections done. So, I would say, yes, it was done by the mayor's executive order, but it was also done at the direction of the city council, the mayor being a member of that council.
So again, I think there's sort of three issues here, and again, I'll take responsibility for my not bringing it up to you guys earlier that we had made the change. But that still, I guess, does leave the fact that we do have a process in place in order to try to deal with these situations, including some of those payment plans, as were mentioned previously. And I guess we did not provide the opportunity to explain how much of a loss we were taking from the situation. And so I guess I'm not sure how we would move forward with it, but is the sense from the board that you would have preferred that we not start doing shutoffs at this point?
Yeah, that's where I'm at on the issue, because, I think when we got into the discussion of, hey, we don't want to do disconnects during a global pandemic, we knew that, or we should have foreseen that there would be financial ramifications. I don't think any of us thought not doing water shutoffs, it was going to be profitable for the city, but the point was that there are a lot of people who are in a very unfortunate situation because of these outside global factors. So, you know, to me, you know, if 80% of, or an 80% increase accounts became delinquent, you know, that doesn't necessarily say to me it's because we stopped doing disconnects. That seems to say to me that people are having a difficult time paying their bills during a period of unemployment that's the second highest that our country has ever seen. So that's my concern on the whole issue. It's not necessarily just that we stopped doing it and you didn't tell us, it's that we stopped starting to do it. I don't know. That we are doing disconnects again is my big issue.
Well, how have we done disconnects, or we're working towards them? I feel like you said we've moved to payment plans but haven't disconnected yet. But I thought there was some disconnects. So now I'm a little confused on what actually happened.
No, we did do disconnects last week.
You said 44 or so?
Right. Let me just double check the slide.
I'm gonna jump in.
It was 53, and then so we disconnected 53, and then there were another 44 that were eligible, but due to the dollar amount, we did just give them door hangers and didn't actually shut them off.
Glenn, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was going to chime in and just say, I don't want to be insensitive to people in a tough situation, but I'm okay with us proceeding the way that we've done. So I recognize others disagree, but I'm fine with the way that the staff and mayor, you decided to go.
I'm also okay if we work with them to have a payment plan. We have some pressure to be able to say, hey, you really need to start doing something so that you don't get disconnected. I think that's the way we ought to proceed is, you know, we'll take a little bit, but you need to pay at least something to keep your service going. I understand if we continue to just not disconnect anybody, eventually they're not going to pay ever, and all of our people that are getting water are going to have to pay a lot more money.
And if I can just add something, when we started looking at this, we did send a survey out to almost every city in Salt Lake County and most of Utah County, and all of them had resumed shutoffs. In addition, Questar resumed shutoff, or Dominion Energy now, they resumed shutoffs in August, and Rocky Mountain Power had resumed shutoffs in July. So we were one of the last. I didn't survey absolutely every city, but at least in Salt Lake County, we were the last to resume shutoffs. The bond covenants really was the most concerning thing for me as a finance professional, because that would, if we continue not disconnecting people, we're getting to the point we would need to report that, and it could affect our bond rating and not being in compliance with our bond covenants.
If let us come back at the next meeting with just a further report on the direction that things are going as far as people getting caught up, shutoffs, a similar report to what Kyle did today. And we'll provide some specific time to walk through that a little bit further and see if there's any changes that you would like to make legislatively. Perhaps we'll also summarize some of these additional details that were not included in the original slides to provide some additional information to you on the status of the program.
All right, that works for me.
Well, yeah, it works for me. I mean, retroactively it has to, but I'm still a little disappointed by the whole thing. And I understand the financial reasons, but you know, it also, when you're getting to the discussion of people were getting so far behind that they weren't going to be able to pay it, I mean, to me, that indicates that the person has a very serious reason that they can't afford it. So, I think there are other ways we could leverage on those particular accounts rather than the most dramatic one of them all.
Glenn Kennedy, you were going to make a comment. Do you still find it relevant to give that?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. We'll now move to public hearings, and I want to make sure that I read a statement here that if anyone would like to comment on a public hearing item, please send your comments to Laura Magnus at lmagnus, that's LMAGNESS, at midvale.com. Remember, when commenting, limit your comments to 400 words, which take about 3 minutes to read. Include your first and last name and the city you live in, if you desire, and include the name of the agenda item. City staff will only read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes or about 400 words, so please be concise with your statements. So I'd like a motion now to move into public hearing.
I move that we go into a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move into a public hearing. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll first begin then with consider a preliminary subdivision plat for a 16-lot subdivision located between 127 and 149 East 7100 South. Ward, would you help us through this, please?
All right. So this is a request from Chris Knapp. He's representing Ridgeway Construction for the approval of a preliminary subdivision plat to reconfigure 4 parcels located at 127 through 149 East 7100 South into a 16-lot subdivision with 4 units in 4 different structures. A small-scale master plan for this project was approved by the Planning Commission on May 31st, 2020. The property is zoned single-family residential with a duplex overlay. The combined parcels are approximately 1.2 acres with 280 feet of frontage along 7100 South. There's an existing single-family home on each lot. This proposal will require the demolition and removal of the existing homes and all accessory structures, and all the development will be required to comply with the standards of the SF1 duplex overlay zone and Title 16 subdivisions. Staff has found the proposed subdivision generally complies with the design standards of Title 16 with a few notes. There's a requirement for street trees every 30 feet, and that requirement will be along 7200 South as well as the access road there in the center. So that comes out to 9 trees along 7100 South and 2 trees on each side of that access road. And staff recommends including this as a condition of approval. All new private streets also are required with street lighting or to comply with street lighting standards, including street lights placed at the intersection and no less than 1 street light per 150 feet of roadway. So we'd like to see a light at the intersection as well as at the end of that access road, another light, a street light. And then other than that, they just need their duty to serve letters from water and sewer and the courtesy notices for the utility companies. The applicant proposal was sent to the city engineer and the Unified Fire Authority for review, and both have approved the preliminary plat with conditions to be addressed on the final plat. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on July 8th, 2020, and forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve the preliminary subdivision plat with the conditions listed in your staff report. So are there any questions on this? This is a site plan that's been approved. This basically gives the developer a chance to sell these lots or sell these units.
Any questions for Jana? Jana, do you know if the developer is in attendance?
I wasn't on here last I looked, but they were kind of waiting. The new is making them wait.
I believe Chris is
Yeah.
there. I can see him on the screen.
Okay, hi, Chris.
Hello.
Would you like to add anything to Jana's remarks to help understand this subdivision?
I think she's done a great job. If there are any questions, I know I'm not sure if public comment was read. I think there's a fair amount of public.
We haven't read any in, but I wanted to give you an opportunity, and we may come back to you.
Okay. Well,
I'll ask.
I mean, other than we have in the process of doing this, we have been able to reach out to and meet with several of the adjacent homeowners. Some of them have some concerns that we have made them aware that we're more than happy to work through. On the north side, they're concerned about fencing, and we've made them aware we're happy to work through any issues and do our very best to make them happy. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, Paul?
Chris, I guess the thing that I'm most concerned about with this whole project is the parking. You've only got parking in the garages and very little extra parking for guests. My biggest problem is, and I've seen it over and over again, is you've got the 2-car garages and they're going to fill them up with stuff, and then there's going to be no place to park. It's just, it seems to happen over and over and over again. And that's what really bothers me. That's the one thing. The other thing that bothers me is in the transition to the west of the home there. It's such a small area. And all of our other properties that we try to, a lot of the zones, if they're close to residential, they have to put in some type of transition between the two. And this seems to have nothing. I'd like you to address those 2 points, please.
Okay. As far as parking, your zoning ordinance requires one space per building, per 4 units, which we actually exceed by 2 parking spots. We are concerned about the parking also. I don't think that you guys have our floor plans, but we have started with our CCRs for the subdivision, and we plan to make some strict parking requirements for the residents there. You know, and I suppose that can be done anywhere and can only be enforced as best you can. But we have on our floor plans, the units are actually a little bit wider than a standard garage. And so we have offset all of the garage doors in order to provide storage inside the garages, as well as fitting the cars for parking. Another thing that we are, I mean, this is the public street, but we are removing 3 driveways and creating additional parking along 7100 South that can be used by the surrounding residents also. I suppose, other than just saying we are actually exceeding your zoning ordinance by 2 parking spaces, and what I've explained there, I don't really have
I do understand that, and that's why I'm going to be personally working on these new developments that we're going to make changes, and this can't happen again. This is not something that you're going to find out that they're going to park all over the streets, and then in the wintertime when they have to move, there's no place to put their cars. And it's happened over and over again, and it's just, I'm not blaming you, and I know what the ordinance says, but the ordinance is not working. And it's just, it doesn't work without if these had driveways in them where they could park in the garage, but they could also park by the unit behind them, then it would work. That's my concern.
I will say someone doesn't have to build to the actual limit. So to say, to not blame the developer who is choosing to do it, who openly says he has concerns for parking, is kind of punting on this to try to blame the ordinance. The ordinance is there. You don't have to max it out. So I think that's pretty disrespectful to go, yeah, I think parking is going to be terrible. You can't make people not park on public roads. That CC&R business probably will not stop people from parking on the public road. I think that's pretty rude to come to a city council and say, yeah, we think this is a parking problem. We agree with the citizens, but we need to make as much money as possible. So instead of taking away one unit, adding parking, well, deal with it. I think that's baloney.
So I'll make a comment. I echo on the parking issue, and being somebody that writes and deals with CC&Rs every day, I would like to see some strong parking language in those documents. And you can include provisions restricting your residents in this development from parking on public streets. That's possible. Their guests you may not be able to enforce it against them, but you can include that in the documents. And so that if your residents are parking on the public streets, the HOA board can issue warnings and fine them. That's just fine. That's a contract right. It's not a statute or an ordinance that way.
Yeah, I was more like thinking any sort of guests or anything along those lines that have no contractual obligation to the site.
It's harder that way. I agree. Yep.
Okay. Can you help me understand what your question is as far as the transition on the west?
Well, on the west side, we have two single family homes, and I can't see it on the plat right now, but it was either 8 foot or 8 foot or 10 foot. I don't know between, and there's really no transition. There's not enough space there to put much of a tree or anything to be able to make some type of a transition between the two. I mean, you're putting a lot taller units in there, and it just doesn't seem to work for me.
Our plan on the west side, it's a 10-foot setback, and our landscaping plan shows a 4-foot walkway and a 6-foot planter, which there are trees and shrubs and bushes along with the fence, a new fence that we would install on the west side.
I mean, obviously you need to put a lot of trees in there, or your units are going to look right down into the backyard or the front yard of the homeowner there.
Right.
And so I would hope that you would at least try to figure out how to make that work for them.
So absolutely, we're more than happy to work with any of the surrounding property owners to try and make them happy in any way we can. One change we have made is there were originally 2nd-story windows on the sides of the units, which we have removed because of the concerns of some of those next door neighbors, some of those property owners. So there are no 2nd-story windows on the sides of the buildings now.
Thank you for that.
And Chris, I just want to say thanks for working with some members of the community that had those concerns. We've had developers in the very recent past come in and say that, they haven't had these conversations with the neighbors because they didn't think those meetings would be productive or anything would be worked out in that type of meeting. I think that's the wrong approach to take, as I think most of my council members do as well. So I do appreciate the fact that you're trying to mitigate some of those concerns.
Thank you.
I'll agree with that. Good comments, Dustin. Yep. And thank you for meeting with the residents.
I know that some of the residents to the north were a little concerned as well about their exposure to the units. What are you guys taking? What steps are you guys taking along that north line?
We've talked with all of them, I think. We did actually have a sit-down meeting with, I think, all of the north residents. Their request is to put as tall of a fence there as possible. They also have requested that we, in our landscaping plan, we plant trees on that side. Most of them ask that we don't plant them right against the fence, that we put them closer to our buildings, which we're more than happy to do. But that's kind of what we've talked about with them. I'm not sure, some of them have said they're still, as far as I know, kind of working through what type of a fence or what kind of a wall that they could all agree on. One thing that they did all agree on was they wanted, I think there's an existing 5 or 5.5 foot tall cinder block wall there right now. And the one thing they all did agree on was that they would like a taller fence, which we did agree to provide.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Laura, are there public comments that need to be read in?
Yes, Mayor. I have 2 public comments. The first one is from John Romero. The existing property owners north of the subject property met with the developer builder on Saturday, May 30th, 2020, and a consensus was reached in regard to the type and height of the required wall to be erected by the builder. The consensus was an 8-foot masonry wall to be built and funded by the developers for the entire length of the 4 properties abutting to the north of the project. It is important to note that the existing walls are cinder block and are 5 feet in height. Because the new units are 2-story multifamily residents, the homeowners to the north feel that an 8-foot wall is needed to ensure privacy as allowed for in the Midvale City Code and ordinances. We ask that this agreement between the developer builder and the property owners to the north of the subject property be considered when providing approval to this project. Ideally, the approval should be contingent upon the construction of this wall between this new development and the property owners to the north. And then I have a second comment from Alfred Kessler. After talking with Miss Jana Ward yesterday morning about the Twin Peaks Flats development, I realized the Planning Commission has approved this development and it will be built. I am disappointed. I built the 9-unit PUD East next to this compacted design of greed. Midvale City deserves better. A building and layout consultant needed to review these plans. The city will be dealing with the parking complaints and other density issues. I recommend a review of your Planning Commission guidelines by outside professionals. And those are the 2 comments I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Laura. Chris, do you have anything to address on those public comments?
I really wish I could see who was speaking when they speak, just so I could address you. But I heard rude and arrogant. I don't mean to be that at all. We would like to make our product as best as we can, as best we can, and we feel like we're providing a very good product. And we do feel like we can address some of the parking issues with our covenants. We have in other subdivisions that we've done, and it works. I mean, it doesn't work perfectly. I don't think anything does, but we have been able to solve some of our parking issues through strict enforcement of parking.
The thing that, looking at this project, if I was doing it, I would take away 1 unit and I would put in parking. And I know you're not going to do that, but that's the reality. And what's going to happen because of this particular project is we are going to go back, as the last person mentioned, and we're going to review all of these and make sure this doesn't happen again. So because of the project, things will change in Midvale and they're going to be better for parking. Not going to vote on stuff that I feel that is going to be a real problem for the community and for the people living next to it. I don't doubt that you're going to build a great project. The units are going to look great. but you haven't solved the parking problem in my mind. Thanks.
Any other comments, council?
I just want to be clear. I understand that my photo doesn't show up, but I'm having severe internet connection issues. So if I cut my video, I can at least not hear a lot of cutting sounds. And Chris, I think your name was, I apologize if that came across as harsh. I've never heard someone say, hey, I agree that there's going to be a parking issue. But, you know, and then try to contract out of it when we now have to vote on this and go back and answer to our constituents and say, not only do you think there's a parking issue and that we think there's a parking issue, the developer himself also thinks there's a parking issue, but he built it anyways. So that's why it comes across that way. Whether that was your intention or not, I can't say,
No,
but
I just want to clarify just a little, just so I don't know, I don't know. We do feel like parking can be an issue here. And really, this is what I was trying to say, or if I said I agree with you, I didn't mean to. We do feel like there could be parking issues here, and we feel like we should do everything we can to take care of that problem as best we can. And we feel like addressing those issues through CCRs is a way that we can deal with the parking in the project.
okay, thank you.
And Chris, this is Council Member Gettle, if you can't see who's speaking. The public comment where the gentleman said that you guys had reached an agreement about the fence being an 8-foot masonry fence for the length of the project. Is that something that you guys did agree to?
So if they've come to an agreement, that's news to me. We did meet with them. There were still discussions going on as to what they would like to see there. That is kind of the first I've heard that they have come to an agreement on what type of fence. But again, we're more than happy to sit down with them. I really don't want to write a blank check here and say, hey, you can have whatever you want. But if they're in agreement at this time, I would like to make sure of that, mostly because there were some of the neighbors. One of them has solar panels, which an 8-foot fence would block. We did mention to him that we would work with him on his solar panel issue. And there was another one that mentioned that they really would not like the block wall taken down because they have some vines growing on it. But yeah, to be honest, I didn't know they had come to a consensus as to what they would. They did say they wanted as tall a fence as possible, and that was really the last I've heard from them.
Okay, because from the public comment, it sounded like there was some sort of significant meeting with.
We did have a meeting. We did have a meeting with them. I don't, in that meeting, at the time that we left that meeting, there was not a consensus as to the exact height or type of fence that would go in. It sounds to me like we've come to some kind of agreement though, which I'd be happy to talk with them about.
Yeah, because I do agree with the resident who said that, the motion that we make or don't make tonight should have that spelled out into it. That way, not saying that you wouldn't honor such an agreement, but we can go back to those community members and say, look, it is here in the motion that we approved for this project.
Sure.
Okay, other questions, comments? I'm open to a motion.
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any comments or questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll close the public hearing and a motion to take action.
I mean, I just want to have a discussion for a second. I would be in favor of tabling until we get the language of the fence worked out, since it seemed to be the major issue of the meeting that was had between the developer and the community members. Or we could, once the motion is read here tonight, we can add a letter E that says provide a 8-foot maximum masonry wall. So I'm wondering what staff would recommend.
Jana, do you have?
Is an 8-foot fence allowed?
That's my question.
It sounds very high.
I thought 7-foot fence was.
We
I
have
thought
a provision that allows an 8-foot fence when it's separating multifamily and single family.
Okay.
So it would be.
My concern with that is this is a representative, and like Chris said, that if he didn't feel like that they came to an agreement, and that one particular neighbor does have those solar panels, I just don't know that letter is truly representing. I actually sent a follow-up email to that comment saying that I would want signatures from all of those residents saying that they all did agree to that, and I did not get a response, and that was a few days ago. So I just have that concern that that's not a true representation of every property owner to the north.
Yeah, I have that same concern, and if we make that a condition of the approval, and if those owners can't get on the same page with that, then I hate to bind them all based on that. I think if we did some condition where it says the developer and the adjacent homeowners had to come to an agreement on the fence,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's one of them where they all have to come to a consensus, whatever that is. I feel better about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Quinn, I think that's a good point. I think that's, other than tabling it and coming back when there's an agreement, I think that makes the most sense.
And obviously it needs to be reasonable, right? We can't be like an 8-foot,
It's 24 karat gold.
Yeah, electric fence, like, I don't know how you'd word that where, someone couldn't try to stall the project by, making very creative demands.
I agree.
Okay, so we have a motion then to take some action?
I don't think we do yet, but I'm just figuring out where to. Quinn, do you think we should add a letter E to just say that one of the, prior to the recording, a consensus among the developer and adjacent property owners regarding a fence shall be in place?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Who's going to comment?
I just was wondering, Lisa, if that term is too loose of a, since there's not a definition of what the outcome of that is that an allowed, are we getting ourselves in any kind of trouble by putting that term on there? If you have any thoughts on that.
To not to use the word consensus and use the word agreement?
Well, or saying that it needs to be a certain type of fence rather than saying the solution needs to, an undefined solution needs to be achieved.
My concern is, and I honestly don't know the answer to this, is if there's a requirement for a fence when approving a preliminary plat. If it is a requirement of the ordinance, I don't know that our ordinance requires or allows for us to require a fence when approving a preliminary plat.
It doesn't, it's not particularly, it's not like a requirement. It talks about working with neighbors, but that's all, not like a specific requirement.
I'm sorry, Jenny, you cut out. It talks about what?
Working with the neighbors, that,
oh,
like kind of like a recommendation to reach out to the neighbors.
Do you have that language in front of you?
I don't, but I will look it up.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking we could say something like, you know, developer will work with surrounding property owners to find a fence solution or something
Or to,
like that.
yeah, to resolve concerns about the fence. I think we did that recently with the development that was on 7500 South.
Yeah.
And like 4500 East, where some of the neighbors had issues, and that was one of them, where it was that they would be working with the neighbors to resolve a solution. We didn't necessarily say what that solution had to be, but just that they would work together on that.
Was that, Quinn, was that part of the motion, or did you guys approve it and then ask them sort of on the side to try to work on something out? I thought that's how that one went. Or am I be getting it confused with something else?
That's possible. No, that's possible. I don't recall the exact wording of the motion, if that was just on the side, you know, after the fact, encouraging them to do that. I'd have to go back and look at those minutes.
That's what I remembered happened, which, you know, was fine. Anyway, I don't have a specific answer. Like I said, my biggest concern is just that if we put a term in there and the solution, if someone says that they didn't like the solution that we come up with, or that the developer comes up with, what does that mean relative to this approval?
I agree.
The fence language is not in the subdivision ordinance. It's in the zoning ordinance where it talks about rules of fencing. So nothing in the subdivision.
Just to be clear, we as a council can put anything as a condition. I mean, it could be struck down somewhere eventually, but we could here vote, and if there's 3 votes that say you have to put up a red fence, you have to put up a red fence unless you challenge it some way. Not saying that that's what we'll do, but you know, we do have that ability.
Well, I would encourage us
Not to do that.
not to do that, and to be more as far as the plain language of our ordinance, and if there is no requirement for a fence in a subdivision approval, then I would I mean, if it's compliant in all ways with our ordinance, then I would not recommend that you put an additional requirement.
Chris, just a question for you.
Sure.
Just on our minutes and everything, would you say you'll work with the residents to find a solution that works for them?
We will work with the residents to find a solution that works with them. I believe I've read through the fencing requirements in it, and it says, try to work with the neighbors. It says Midvale City discourages double fence lines and to try to work with the neighbors to come to an agreeable solution, which we will do.
Chris, do you have any issues if I put as a condition, developer will make best efforts to work with adjacent property owners to come up with an agreeable fencing solution?
No, to be honest, no, I don't. Mostly because that sounds vague enough, but we already are, and we are willing. We are more than willing to make everyone happy. I don't want to make enemies over there for sure, and we will do everything.
And I have
to make
no
everyone
question that you're just going to not put up a fence, but I think with the number of people who have reached out to us, council members with concerns,
Sure.
just being able to say, yes, we have this as a condition that they're willing to meet.
Sure.
I think that will satisfy a whole lot of people.
Sure. I do see a possible hiccup in that I really don't think they have a consensus on what they want over there.
Yeah.
And I for sure don't want 2 or 3 different types of fences in my, on the back property line, but absolutely, I do think a taller fence is necessary. It will be better for everyone, us and them. And we would be happy to work with them. One thing that we have considered and are working on right now is the existing block wall is a 5-foot masonry wall that's in fairly good shape. And we have a professional scheduled to come evaluate the wall to see what kind of shape it's in, if it is in good enough shape to leave or maybe add to or fix anything that's wrong with it. I think might be a solution for everyone, because the ones that want to leave the existing fence, we can make it taller. That's one possible solution. It is an older fence and we do want to get it evaluated for sure. But we are more than willing to work with the neighbors, and if we can please everyone, that would be awesome.
Well, I guess I can go ahead and make a motion. I think I will leave the fencing part off. I don't know that it's gonna be the thing that has council members vote yes or vote no for it. So just with your assurances that you'll do that, I think that's appeased us, a lot of us anyway. So Mayor, I am ready to make the motion here if I can. The motion seems a little strange. It starts off with, am I missing something? It starts off kind of strange.
Starts out, the applicant shall prepare.
Yeah. Isn't that an odd way to start the motion? I move that the applicant shall. Okay.
Yes, you're doing
Okay.
it right.
Okay.
I've never seen that either, Destin.
Yeah, it's, based on blah, 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 blah. But anyway, okay, Mayor, I move that the applicant shall prepare a final subdivision plat to be reviewed and approved by the city engineer, fire marshal, and city council. The final subdivision plat shall include the following. A, the applicant shall provide evidence that courtesy notices have been sent to Dominion Energy, Rocky Mountain Power, Xfinity, Utopia, and CenturyLink regarding the utility easements on the subdivision plat with the final subdivision plat application. 2, prior to recording the final subdivision plat, the applicant shall A, obtain duty to serve letters for water and sewer service, B, remove all of the existing structures, C, provide a minimum of 9 street trees along 7100 South and 2 trees on either side of the private road. These trees shall be planted or be guaranteed cash bond. And D, provide a minimum of 2 streetlights along the private street. These streetlights must be installed or be guaranteed by a cash bond.
Okay, there's a motion. There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments upon this motion?
I'll just make a comment real quick, Mayor, and that is, again, this is an administrative action and not a legislative action. So that anybody who's been following it recently with some of these different developments, how that impacts one or the other. But with the administrative, if it fits the zoning, that definitely has an impact on what we can and cannot request as part of or approving it. So that's the only comment I have.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Rory, would you ask the vote?
Yes. Councilmember Sperry,
Aye.
Glover,
Nay.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
No.
Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 3-2. Motion approved. All right, we'll move on to consider a preliminary subdivision plat for a 17-lot subdivision located at 6790 through 6808 South 700 East, and invite Jason Binks to help us understand this one, please.
Good evening, council members. Let me share my screen. Okay, do you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. This is a preliminary subdivision application for a plat called Meadows on 7th. It's 6790 South, 700 East. The applicant is Brad Reynolds Construction. There's the vicinity map. It's 2 lots, about 1.8 acres. Those lots are going to be combined. There's been no development on this parcel since at least the early 80s, as far back as we can go with aerial footage. This is about 500 feet south of 215, and it's on the west side of 700 East there, that road that runs north-south. This property and all the surrounding property are all zone single family with a duplex overlay. The only other thing to note is on the north and the west side of this property is the Jordan and Salt Lake Canal. Here's a little bit better history of this application request. It was scheduled for July 8th, but that meeting ran for 5 hours, so Planning Commission saw it on July 22nd. They approved the master plan development, the conditional use for the master plan, and the preliminary site plan. And they did recommend that the city council approve the preliminary subdivision tonight, and that's what you're seeing. Here's the plat, Meadows on 7th. You can see that they're proposing to divide these into 17 lots. There's going to be 5 structures. There's 2 4-plexes and 3 3-plexes. And all of these units will be 2 stories with a basement and 2-car internal garage. There's a private street that accesses off 700 East. It ends in 2 stub streets. There are 6 guest parking spots, both at the end of both terminuses of those stub streets. And there's also public amenities at the end of those stub streets, a gazebo and a kids' playground. The developer's proposing to extend the sidewalk along the west part of 700 East, which doesn't exist there now. This subdivision, this proposed subdivision, meets all requirements of Title 16 and all the requirements of Title 17. It has been approved by the fire marshal, the city engineer with minor comments, and they're working on those for the final subdivision plat. And the canal owners, the Jordan and Salt Lake Canal owners, have also reached out and had minor comments, and they're working with them as well. So in summary, the staff believes that as proposed, the location and the density is compatible with the area, and we're recommending approval. Here are rather standard conditions of approval to submit a final plat, meet the requirements of building officials, in the subdivision or the final subdivision to have declaration CCNRs, obtain duty to serve letters, courtesy notices to dry utilities, and then anything additional that the canal owners might require. We sent out public notices to 60 residents. There were 3 comments that were read in at the Planning Commission, and we've received 1 additional comment that Laura will read in here shortly. Here's our recommendation, is to approve the 17-lot preliminary subdivision. And I do believe that Ryan Reynolds is in attendance here to answer any additional questions about the specifics of the development.
The Ryan Reynolds.
The Ryan Reynolds, yeah.
Ryan, do you have any comments that you'd like to add to Jason's presentation.
No, Jason's done a great job and really good to work with. We're just excited to have this opportunity to build in Midvale again. These units are great, high quality units. We supply standard granite countertops, 3.2 and 3-tone paint, highest quality townhome you'll find. But we're just really excited to be here, and just want to thank Jason for the work he's put in so far.
You're going to be busy with that big one over on 64th right next door.
Yeah, no, we just love the area. It's awesome.
Ryan, this is Councilmember Brown.
Hi.
Familiar with your product from from a previous job I had. You usually are for sale. It was kind of broken up during the presentation. Are these for sale, or are you leasing these?
They're for sale.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other questions or comments for the developer or Jason? Okay, Laura, are there any public comments that would need to be read in at this time?
Did we go into a public hearing? I don't remember.
Oh, thank you. Let's do that.
I move that we go into a public hearing.
Second.
There's a motion, a second, to go into public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Dustin. Okay, Laura, do you have comments that you'd like to read in?
I do. I have one comment from Bruce Merrill from Angie Apartments LLC. I received a letter that Brad Reynolds Construction is proposing a development at 6790 South, 700 East, Midvale, Utah. Every month I get either a phone call or letters asking if I would like to sell my duplex. To me, there are several large real estate organizations who want to buy more and more real estate. I always turn down their requests, but I feel that these large companies will absorb all the real estate they can. The news people are always reporting that the apartment industry is overcharging. This is not correct with the tenants I have. I will sign a contract with my new tenant and not adjust the monthly cost. Example, I am now $250 less a month on one of my apartments and have not raised the monthly premium. I can, but I elect to take care of my tenants and not push the price up. Would it be possible to allow a small landlord like me to be able to purchase a lot? My guess is that the big conglomerates will purchase every lot. I take care of my tenants, take pride in my duplexes, update the duplexes, and would like to purchase a lot in this new subdivision. And that's the only public comment I have, Mayor.
And I think Brad could, or Ryan could work something out with.
Yeah, I'm sure we could. I mean, we're open to sell to anyone who's willing to pay. So, sure.
Brad, Ryan, when were you going to start breaking ground on these?
Just as soon as we can get it, approved. So whenever that would be.
Okay.
Any questions or comments?
Mayor, this is Councilmember Sperry. I'd like to just make one comment and just to clarify. I mean, I don't know if this person was necessarily implying it, but we heard it months in the past when somebody made a public comment kind of saying shame on us for forcing somebody to sell their property to a developer. And, you know, we're not doing that, right? I mean, that's the open market. If people own land and they want to sell it to whoever they want, that's up to them. We're not getting involved in forcing anybody to sell to certain parties. So that's the only comment I have.
And I would piggyback on that. You know, although an individual is buying them, you know, if these are for sale units, there's going to be 17 individual owners on this property. So, I mean, sure, and you know, maybe a quote unquote conglomerate or a larger company does this, but in this instance, he then gives ownership to 17, right? There's 17 on the 16 or 17 other people. So it kind of doesn't apply to that situation because then we have 17 new homeowners in Midvale that own a piece of property. At least that's how I don't necessarily agree with that opinion, I guess is what I was saying with that comment.
And the city won't be involved in making people sell their property or buy property. We simply administer the city business, and the city business belongs to everyone.
Yep.
And
Okay.
I'll just throw in my normal plug that even though they are for sale, that homeowner can certainly choose to rent out their property to anyone that they want. So,
Yeah. Rent it out or sell it again.
yep.
Right. But there's still an individual ownership, 17 of them. Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we
Mayor,
close
I
the public hearing.
Sounds like we had two motions. I'll take one of those second. Anybody commenting on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion on the action, please.
If somebody's looking for the wording, I'll just make one other comment here. I mean, I grew up by this area, and I don't know how many times I've driven by this, and countless number of times wondered what would go in there. So, it's interesting to finally see it being developed.
I totally agree, Quinn. I've wondered that myself. It's been a big vacant lot, like the one that Brad picked up over on 64th. Just seemed to be vacant for so long in the middle of good residential properties.
There's certainly no parking issues with this one from the looks of the plans, from what I can tell anyway.
Okay.
Mayor, based on compliance with the requirements of the Midvale City Municipal Code demonstrated in the application or addressed by conditions of approval, I move that we approve the 17 lot preliminary subdivision plat at 6790 South, 700 East with the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall prepare a final subdivision plat to be reviewed and approved by the city engineer, fire marshal, and city council. Prior to final subdivision plat approval, the applicant shall obtain final site plan approval for the master plan development. 2, all requirements of the building official, fire marshal, city engineer, and planning staff shall be satisfied. 3, the final subdivision plat application shall include the following. A draft declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, including the creation of a homeowners association for the development. Once approved, this document shall be recorded concurrently with the subdivision plat. B, obtain duty to serve letters for water and sewer prior to the subdivision plat being recorded. C, evidence that courtesy notices have been sent to Dominion Energy, Rocky Mountain Power, Xfinity, Utopia, and CenturyLink regarding utility easements on the subdivision plat. And D, those items required by the Salt Lake Public Utilities regarding the adjacent canal.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on this motion? I think it's pretty neat to be voting on an almost perfect pentagon-shaped piece of property. Rory, would you ask the questions, please?
Yes. Councilmember Glover.
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
and Sperry.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passed.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome, Ryan. We'll look forward to another outstanding project.
Thanks.
We'll now move to the consent agenda to consider the minutes of August 4 and August 11, 2020.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any comments or questions on this motion? Rory?
Yes, Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Sperry,
Aye.
and Glover.
Aye.
Thank you. We have 2 action items. Nope, 3. The first one is to consider resolution 2020 R38 adopting the 2020 Water Master Plan. And for this, Glenn, you're up to bat.
Yes, just give me 1 second. I'm having technical difficulties, but I think I'm close to figuring it out.
Would you know if you were a really long time away from figuring it out?
I've got it now, but if we need to take a break, I'm fine with that.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. I know you've all been waiting for this presentation.
It's not the most exciting information, but it is very important to have a plan for water for the future.
Let's see here. Okay, are we there?
Yes.
Okay. So I know that there was a lot of information provided last week. I'm going to recap some of it and stop at any time if you have any questions. So the quick background on it: Midvale City acquired Hansel and Lewis to prepare an updated water master plan. The purpose of the plan is to provide direction and decisions and actions that will need to be completed to adequately deliver water to the community, especially as it continues to grow. So the process, HAL analyzed the following. They analyzed current water system components and facilities, so where we're at currently, current customer use data, population growth projection data that was provided by the city and some other outside sources of information, level of service that the city wants to meet, and then also state water system requirements. So after they analyze that, then they provide recommendation on system project and upgrade options to meet all the requirements. So it's, I don't want to say it's reverse engineered, but somewhat. Growth is probably the biggest driver of what we need to do. You can see from 2010 to 2060, 2020 to 2060, where we're going to be. If you'll recall, they talked about ERCs, and I'll get to that in the next slide. 40 years seems like a long time, but when you're planning for a community and you're planning to provide water, that is not a long time. I just wanted to clarify that. So as far as level of service goes, Hansen and Luce determined, so an ERC, and if I say ERU, please know that it's the same thing. In stormwater, it's ERU, and so sometimes I go back and forth. But ERC is an equivalent residential, I'm going to say unit because that's what I'm used to, ERU. They require an annual volume of a half an acre foot, which is about 1,000 gallons. That on a peak day, like the worst summer watering day that they have, they're going to use 1,200 gallons per day. So we need to plan for that. And then storage capacity just for use. This doesn't include fire or emergency storage, about 500 gallons a day per ERC. Minimum fire flow requirements, and these are set by the International Fire Code, are 1,000 GPM for residential areas and 2,000 gallons per minute for non-residential. We asked that the design be that there would not be a maximum operating pressure of 110. There are areas that will be above that, but it's not it's not critical. It's not concerning. Minimum operating pressures, peak day 50 psi and peak instantaneous 50. These are city level of service requests. The state requires 40 and 30, but past experience, if you get 40 at the meter after it goes through and goes up a couple floors, you're going to lose PSI, and it's not the best case scenario for customers. So that's why we have the 50 PSI in there. So from 2020 to 2060, we are going to go from 13,000, well, roughly 14,000 to 24,000 ERCs. So we need to plan for that future growth. Source requirements. The peak day source requirements, this is in gallons per minute. Currently, we are okay with no more future growth. But if we do have a well go down, we can still manage it, but we need some backup. Annual source requirements. We are pretty tight on our source requirements currently. There are projects proposed in the plan that would remedy that. Storage requirements are probably the more complicated issue here. So Midvale City, we have 2 tanks that serve the majority of the city. So we can provide storage there, but for the Union Park Union or Union Jordan area, we are contracted with Jordan Valley. So we're using their system for storage in that area. That contract will expire in 10 years. If you look at the table below, can you all see my mouse, by the way? I tried to make it huge. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yes.
Okay. So 2024, we're okay. 2029, when our contract expires with Jordan Valley, we are going to need 6 million gallons of storage. And again, the timeline, 2020 to 2029 seems like a long time. That is not. When you consider that you need to acquire land, go through the construction process, and then put it into service, that's a very tight timeline. I'm hoping that we can renegotiate with Jordan Valley, but we need to prepare for the worst case and build our own storage.
Hey, Glenn, sorry to interrupt. Did Kane pass information to you about a potential site? It may not work with timing, but.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Kane has it. He can get it to you.
Okay, great. That's excellent. So
Well, I don't know how well it'll work.
Well, it's great to have an option. How's that? So the recommendations are kind of broken down into project types here. If you want to dig into the master plan, you can see the individual projects within each of these categories. So revising the pressure zones, that's going to benefit the city in that will allow us to use our current storage and current tanks in other areas of the city where currently it's not possible. So that might alleviate at least the amount that we need to contract with Jordan Valley and or require us to build a smaller storage tank for that area. Fire flow deficiencies, we need to meet the minimum 1,000 GPM for fire flow. Again, that's International Fire Code standard. Typically, this is just a line sizing issue. A lot of our, well, we have portions of the city that have older pipes and like 4-inch and 6-inch that just need to be upsized to 8 for fire flow. The replacing the existing transmission lines. There are a portion of our transmission lines. So the difference between a transmission line and a distribution line is a transmission line, it would be like a main artery. And then the distribution system would be the veins kind of breaking off of that, right? So our existing transmission main, our existing artery from the tanks to the city runs through some areas that are, to say the least, concerning. I forgot the fuel company or the fuel facility on State and 80th. I want to say Cardwell, but it's not Cardwell. Anyway, our the main artery that feeds a good portion of the city runs through their property and under large fuel tanks. And if there were ever an issue on that line, it would not be good. So as part of the master plan, I asked HAL to look at moving that, and that is what that is. The bulk of the demand is or the bulk of the cost is for future growth, and I'll get into that on the next slide. But I don't want to pass over the annual replacement of the aging pipes. That's about $2 million a year. So in discussions with Hanson Allen Luce, they asked what, do we have a pipe replacement program? And we do, but it's not standardized or in a process yet. But they looked at all the pipes that are 50 years and older, started there, and then we will just continue to replace aging pipes, and that will hopefully lessen the a large replacement project in the future. So accommodating future demand, that's the bulk of this, right? And this is the broken down list of projects to accommodate that. The 4 million, wait, where are we at? Sorry, North Union and South Union. If we can negotiate with Jordan Valley, we to eliminate that need. If not, but we're still looking at $18 million to complete the projects for growth. Funding options for the recommended projects that will be explored, in addition to water use fees, include general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, state federal loans, and grants and impact fees. And as we've already discussed, a comprehensive fee rate study will be completed this year. Sewer utilities, their rates are intertwined a bit, so it makes sense to do that. The study will include the recommended projects within each utility's master plan, the projected staffing needs, and all current and projected operating costs for each utility. So once we know what we need, whoever we bring on as a consultant will then give us options on how we fund that. So are there any questions up to this point? Okay, that is all I have. I have the recommended motion here. If that is the direction council wants to go.
Okay, now's your chance to ask questions, make comments.
Can we just simplify it and say, I move that we have water for the future?
I do not have a problem with that at all.
Glenn definitely would be okay with that kind of motion. I have no doubt about that.
Glenn, do we have a cost on this, and do we have money set aside for it?
A cost on for the projects?
Yeah, no, not the projects, for the
fee rate study?
Yeah, the study.
Yes, we do. We have budgeted for that for this year for both utilities.
How much was that?
I want to say 25,000, but I might need to lean on Kyle for the fee rate studies.
I'm looking it up right now. It was around 25,000.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions or comments?
I just want to say, kind of echo what Councilman Gettle said last time about a different topic. It's not that we don't have questions or comments about this. It's just for the public watching, because this is, a big plan. We brought it up last time, and some of us probably reached out to Glenn to talk about it too. So it is an important topic for sure, but yeah, we're a little bit further along in the process. So I just don't want people to think we're like uninterested in something like this. And I'd ready to make a motion.
Ready, go.
Is this one on the screen? This everyone should do this. This is great. I move that we adopt resolution number 2020 R-38 approving the adoption of the 2020 Water Master Plan prepared by Hanson, Allen, and Lucy Engineering for the planning purposes of providing adequate water services to current and future Midvale City customers, residents.
Second.
And it is loose.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions upon this motion? Rory, would you ask the votes, please?
Yes, Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Barry,
Aye.
Glover,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you. That action item passes. We'll now go to the second action item to consider final approval subdivision plat for a 22 lot subdivision located at approximately 1000 East Fort Union Boulevard. That's my front door neighbor. Jason, help us through this again.
All right. All right, this is a final subdivision application. The shop's at Fort Union, about 1000 East Fort Union. And the applicant is Anderson Wallen and Associates. There's the vicinity map. There's 22 lots in that commercial subdivision. It's about 56 acres. It's a big one. It's minus 2 parcels there in the northeast that are not included in this final subdivision. And those are right along Union Park. And just a note that the East Jordan Canal extension runs under this entire property from about southwest to northeast. Here's where we're at with the final subdivision. It too was also in front of Planning Commission on July 8th. The meeting ran long, so it was rescheduled July 22nd. They approved it or recommended approval to you. You saw it 2 weeks ago. And now they're back, very, very rapid turn on this for a final subdivision, but you'll see there's not too much to it. It's large, but not too complicated. There's the overall 56 acres, 22 lots. The whole reason this is being done is to, there's a survey to prepare it for potential sale to individual commercial buyers. So upon that resurvey, they found multiple minor discrepancies with the lot lines. And the survey then provides more accurate curve tables, line tables, meets and bounds. And so in general, when they resurvey like this, it makes for a much more cohesive network that meets what is actual ground truth today. So what I want to show you is this is a very large plat. So this is one of 8. I'm not going to show all 8, but just to get a scale of this thing and how detailed it is, there's the first page. There's multiple easements with this final subdivision. There's utility easements, drainage easements, access and parking easements, but none of those easements are being proposed changes. There's also no proposed changes to the existing buildings or different utility services. The applicant has received comments from the city engineer, and they've worked very hard on adding and including and amending the final subdivision with those comments. Applicants also today, just today, sent courtesy notices to all the dry utilities. So they're really trying to move forward and get this approved. This is kind of a special area, again, from 2 weeks ago, same brief or similar brief. It's in a special flood hazard area, and the plat does take into account these base flood elevations on the plat there on the eastern portion. They've also received comments from the canal owners, and they're incorporating those changes. There was also a requirement that they plant some additional perimeter trees. Jake Tate has been great to work with. He's been very speedy replies, very competent recommendations, and we've come to an agreement with how many trees are going to be planted around the perimeter in the landscape easement there, or the landscape perimeter rather. So the correct species, good locations, and based on aerial photos from the 90s, it just looks like some trees have died off or they were removed and never replaced. So they're proposing several trees, and this is what Mr. Tate has given to us, and we've come to an agreement. So he's getting an estimate and put forward a bond for those. So we'll fill in all those areas along the shops with trees. So we sent out about 160 different public notifications for both the preliminary and the final. We got 2 comments that were read into the record at the preliminary, and we received no comments as a result of the final subdivision. So we're recommending approval. Only 2 conditions of approval. This will read in. And then there's our motion that you approve the 22 lot final subdivision plat. There's no public comment, so if Mr. Jake Tate is here, I'll throw it over to him for any questions about the plat. Jake, are you on?
Yep, I'm here. Thanks for getting us to this point. We're excited to be here, and I think we're going to have some great things happen here in the future. So any questions you have, I'm here for.
Jake, this is Mayor Hale. I live right behind on North Union Avenue, and the cinder block wall capstone has been crumbling over the years, and I'm wondering, would you put that on your maintenance to-do list and get that wall fixed? It's it deteriorates and draws the nether attention from our society, and they take advantage of it.
You bet. I will pass that along the chain and get it into the maintenance schedule.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Jake? It's good to have you here, Mr. Tate.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with your staff. It's been a pretty smooth process, so thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll entertain a motion, please.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2020-013, rezoning property located at 380.
You're
East
one off.
Oh, sorry. Well, someone else read it then.
Can you go back to the presentation? Wasn't the motion on this one as well?
Oh yeah, it was on the screen.
There you go.
Mayor, based on compliance with the requirements of the Midvale City Municipal Code demonstrated in the application or addressed by conditions of approval, I move that we approve the 22 lot final subdivision plat at approximately 1000 East Fort Union Boulevard.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions upon this motion? Hearing none. Rory, would you pose the questions?
Yes. Councilmember Gettle,
Yes.
Barry,
Aye.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
and Brown.
Yes.
There you go, Mr. Tate.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Nice, Jake.
We'll move on to our third action item to consider ordinance number 2020-013, rezoning approximately 3.91 acres of property located at 380 East Fort Union Boulevard from single-family residential zone with duplex and 7200 south overlays to multifamily residential medium to high density zone with 7200 south overlay. Alex Murphy, please.
Good evening, everybody. Let me just share this real quick.
So you might recall, we talked about this rezone just last meeting. This was for Housing Connect. They're on Fort Union Boulevard. So where the request is to rezone that property so that they can redevelop the overall site. There's currently 12 duplexes on there, and following the last meeting, Housing Connect has revised their plans and dropped the unit count in the proposal from 97 units to 89. And they've kept the building height the same at 3 stories. They've kept the building in the same location. They've expanded the parking lot, and they've managed to do all of that largely without creating any issues with the zoning ordinance under the RM25 zone. So this request really is just for the council to reconsider that decision to table, because if the rezone is not approved, rather, this project ends up getting a pretty significant delay. And we should have Ms. Kimball from Housing Connect here, and she can kind of walk you through the timing of the project overall. The last meeting, we discussed the justification for the rezone in the zoning ordinance and in the general plan. As you can see here, there's already an existing RM25 area next to this project. The Fort Union Boulevard corridor is expected to see some intensification in development patterns over time. That existing zone isn't really supporting the development style on that street anymore. Opportunity areas generally expect more intense developments, so we want to make sure to take advantage of it here so that we can keep those higher intensity developments out of the stability or the stable areas. This rezone was also supported by the housing plan, which calls for increased density in neighborhoods of opportunity, which are areas where there's good access to transportation, jobs, shopping, recreation, etc. Providing additional housing options, improving existing developments, and focusing on those households making below that 80% AMI number. So I don't really have a whole lot more to add beyond what we talked about last meeting, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or happy to have Ms. Kimball hop up to the fore to kind of go over where they're coming from on the Housing Connect side.
Questions for Alex?
Just a comment again, I said it to the last developer, but anytime a developer is willing to work with concerned adjacent property owners, I find that to be a very good sign of not only their commitment to building and developing in Midvale, but to appeasing the concerns of the residents around them. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Janice. Any comments you'd like to add?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alex. I just want to thank the council for reviewing this with us. And it really is important to us to make sure that we're a good fit within the community and that we meet your expectations. Part of what we're doing is we're taking some dated units of public housing who have really kind of hit the end of their lifespan, and we're redeveloping them. And so with that process, we have to deal with some deadlines and bureaucracy with HUD, and then we also have to meet the funding requirements of the tax credit. So low-income housing tax credits is the primary way that we're able to build affordable housing that is of high quality. And to do that, we have a deadline in September, mid-September. So having this approval today is really important to us. So thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Questions for Janice or Alex?
I guess my only question is on the parking then, you're putting in the extra parking, where is that going to go? What does that take out?
I'm going to see if Sarah Webb, who's our architect, can answer that. So basically, Councilman, we reduced the unit bedroom sizes, and then we extended the parking to the, I believe on the north side.
Yeah, what we ended up having to do was remove some of the amenities, which we had an abundance of, but those had to be reduced to incorporate more parking, and then we also had to reduce the number of units. So,
So do you feel that the project's still going to be a great project then?
of course,
Okay.
there are, and when I say reduce amenities, I mean we were already in an abundance of those, and so there are still amenities on this site. Still, open space. It's still well thought through with a variety of options for the residents.
Thank you.
It is unfortunate to me, who supported the initial plans 2 weeks ago, that some bedroom sizes have been reduced and amenities have been reduced for the people living there, in favor of a parking spot. And I know that's not what you guys wanted either, but I just want to make it known that I find that to be unfortunate.
And Councilman, I agree with the reduction in bed or units. Where I don't lose sleep is when we look at our waiting list. The highest number of units that we have requested by and large is 1 bedroom. So I know by building this, we're going to meet that need. I would have liked a few more 3 bedrooms, but I think this is a really good compromise.
That's good.
And this is Jeremy Rooney. I work with Housing Connect as well. And just by way of summary, we have reduced the unit count from the original presentation before by 8 total units. And we've increased the parking by 14 stalls. So that's what we're talking about in overall summary adjustments to the site.
Good input, Jeremy. Any other comments or questions for Janice, Sarah, or Jeremy?
This is Councilmember Sperry. I had the same concerns that Councilmember Glover had, so that's already been addressed.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the candid response on how this is a good compromise. I think that's a good presentation overall. So I appreciate that from the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2020-0-13, rezoning property located at 380 East Fort Union Boulevard from single-family residential with duplex and 7200 South overlays to RM25 zone with 7200 South overlay based on the following findings. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the goals of the 2016 Midvale City General Plan, including 2019 Housing Plan, and the land and its surrounding environs have changed to such a degree that is in the public interest to encourage redevelopment and recognize the changed character of the area.
Second.
Are there any, we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions to this motion?
I have an overall thought about sort of the language of these. Do we need to put in, like 2 is sort of just like fluffy language. Like, is that something we need to put in here going forward? I mean, I would have been fine with just that first paragraph stopping, with 72 South overlay, or do we need to provide them? I just feel like it's a little fluffy and I don't know how that is used for or against this. It's more of just thinking out loud when I was reading it. I never realized.
I think Alex and the others, Alex and others can comment, but I think we put that language in there to hit some of the elements of why a rezone is appropriate in this circumstance.
That is correct. The zoning ordinance requires written findings along these lines to approve a rezone. So that's what we
Okay,
have.
that's fine. I don't know if I've ever noticed one like that. So that was more of a curiosity. Thanks, Alex.
Uh-huh.
Okay, there's a motion. And I believe we had a second, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay, any comments or questions further on this motion? All right, Rory?
Okay, Councilmember Sperry,
Aye.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion passes. Way to go, Housing Connect.
Thank you all so much.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Break a
Thanks.
leg.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we'll let Rory get converted over to RD. We'll
No
be back.
conversion, Mayor. We're good. Good to go.
We're good to go already?
Good to go. Yes.
We are fast. All right. Everybody switch over to your RDA packet. Laura, do I need to read all this comment again? Laura Magnus?
That's up to Lisa. I don't think you need to because you've already read it at the beginning of the city council meeting. Lisa, do you want him to read the anchor location comment again?
Sorry, you do, Mayor.
I can't hear you, Lisa. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Sorry, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. You do have to read that again, Mayor.
I'm going to have this memorized pretty quick. All right, this meeting will be an electronic meeting without a physical location pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-207 as amended by House Bill 5002. Mayor Robert Hale, as chair of the Midvale City Council, hereby makes the determination that conducting the meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. This determination is based upon the fact that the city is unable to ensure compliance with the guidelines and public health protocols mandated by the state's current risk phase. As restrictions take place across the state for limiting public gatherings, the city wants to make sure everyone interested in participating in city council and redevelopment meetings can do so. The meeting will be broadcast on the following links, and there is a YouTube channel, and there is a Mixler and city website at midvalecity.org. Public comments are read into the record for city staff during public comments and public hearing portions of the meeting. If you'd like to make a public comment, please send an email to Laura Magnus at lmagness@midvale.com. When commenting, please limit your comments to 400 words, which is equivalent to 3 minutes. Include your first and last name. You may optionally include the city of residence. Please include the name of the agenda item so city staff know when you want your public comment to be read into the record. City staff will read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes. Your input is important to us, so please keep your comments concise. We will begin with a welcome to all who are listening in and all city council and staff and whoever is participating in this. I forgot to see how many we had this time. It's like we got 19 participants. So let's have a roll call. Rory?
Okay, Board Member Gettle.
Here.
Barry,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Robinson,
Here.
and Glover.
Here.
We're getting sleepy, Rory.
I know.
Okay. Laura, are there any public comments to be read in at this time?
No, Mayor, no public comments.
Thank you. Next, move to the consent agenda to approve the minutes of June 16th, 2020.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any comments or questions on this motion? Rory?
Yes, Board Member Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one action item tonight to discuss and consider Resolution 2020-10-RDA, authorizing the execution of a usage agreement between the agency and Just Don't Quit Foundation pertaining to the usage of the basketball court owned by the agency. Cody Hill, help us through this.
Thank you so much.
At halftime.
Appreciate it, Mayor, and thank you, RDA Board, for your time. I've prepared a quick PowerPoint that kind of puts all of the pertinent information right in front of you. If I can pull that up. Let's see. How do I take over and share my screen?
There's a green arrow down.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Yep, I see. Share screen. Okay, are you looking at my PowerPoint?
You got it.
Wonderful. Okay. So the, were you guys downstairs? Huh? All right, so this usage agreement pertains to the agency-owned basketball court site, which is at 695 West 5th Avenue. So just kitty corner to the City Hall and across the street from the Senior Center. And what we've seen right now is that the rec site is underutilized, and we have received interest from a nonprofit organization to utilize that property for really the purpose that it is intended, which is to hold and use recreational events and to use it to play. And so they are the Just Don't Quit Foundation, and they are registered 501c3. They're an organization that sponsors, organizes, and runs recreation-focused events. They would, specifically at that site, they would like to hold workshops, trainings, pickup games, and tournaments primarily for pickleball. But they also do have experience running tennis, basketball, and wheelchair basketball events as well. And the director, his name is Randall Wade. And I just got a text message from him that he is waiting to be let in so he could give himself a quick introduction. So if
can he verify what his name is, because it's not showing? He doesn't have a very identifiable name on the waiting list.
Okay, I believe he is. I'll send him a.
You may need to provide IT with the phone number that he's calling in there under.
Yeah.
Or whatever device.
So their mission statement is looks to increase the dialogue and interaction between adaptive and able-bodied communities through athletics and education. And the objective of this particular project in Midvale is to grow their mission through the sport of pickleball and organize, sponsor, and run creative and focused, recreation-focused events. And so he has an extensive background working with other nonprofits. He's worked with the Road Home when they partnered with Spence, with the Eccles Foundation and Eccles. He's done a number of interviews with notable athletes. He's interviewed Michael Jordan. He's interviewed Kathy Ireland, and been involved in, basically sports journalism for a number of years, as well as holding and sponsoring events on his own through his organization. And so we have looked into that organization and vetted them as well. And so what they would want to do is basically just hold these pickleball trainings, workshops, introduce people, especially with, he does speak Spanish and does Spanish language media as well, out to the Hispanic population and get them involved in pickleball as well. And so very much community oriented, and also to go out to local businesses on Main Street and in Midvale, and invite them to go to the vendor tents to have their business represented, to advertise, sell, and offer their services from the vendor tents when he holds when they hold larger events like tournaments. And also note that in the agreement, it stipulates that the participants and the organizers will maintain strict compliance to social distancing, basically the county, Salt Lake County measures that are recommended for COVID-19 safety. The main points of the agreement are agency agrees to give the Just Don't Quit Foundation priority for scheduling to reserve the rec site. So they would go and calendar when they would like to hold their events, and they will only reserve the rec site for when it's needed for activities, including workshops, games, and tournaments for pickleball and possibly basketball and wheelchair basketball and related events. And when it's not reserved, it is open to the public still. And when they reserve the site, they can set up vendor tents, no more than 4, shade structure, lighting, and a sound system, and they must comply with city ordinances and form-based code, and that they will break down and store everything off site when they're not using the site. So it can still be used by the public. And they must use it when they reserve it. They must provide proof of insurance. They can request temporary power from Rocky Mountain Power, but must have it removed after the agreement expires. And they can have an A-frame sign and signs, the signage posted on the interior of the court cannot be visible from the street. So we worked with planning and as well as legal to make sure everything was going to be by the book. And the benefits to the agency will to be better utilize the rec site while the agency prepares an RFP to sell the rec site. It'll increase usage, provide a public benefit from agency-owned property, and pickleball can be learned and played safely during the pandemic. The agency can assess the demand for recreational opportunities on Main, and when the court is not in use, the rec site will still remain open to the public. So, are there any questions on the organization or the agreement or the terms?
Just a question on what do they think, how often will they be using the facility?
So they envision on having probably once or twice a month larger events, kind of tournaments, and a couple of times a week at least having smaller workshops and training. So if the quality is good, I'm going to try and put Randall on right now on speakerphone. And if the quality is bad, then we can forgo that idea. But I just wanted to give him an opportunity to introduce himself to the RDA board.
Welcome, Randall.
Randall, you're on speakerphone right now on the RDA board meeting.
Yeah, hi, hello everybody. This is Randall. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Good. I'm glad to join you guys. Sorry about the technology. Hello?
Any questions for Randall?
I guess just the same question I asked before is what is their expected usage?
Oh, yeah, well, we look to be able to use it a couple of times a week. And that just depends on the response from the community. We'd like to be able to up that if we can, but at least a couple of times per week.
Okay.
I guess my other question is how long does this agreement for?
Oh, sorry, I didn't include that. This agreement will go until December 31st. And we can look at where the pandemic is, where the city is on wanting to move forward with putting out the RFP, and we can amend and extend the agreement as needed. But the way it writes right now, it's until December 31st of this year.
Thank you.
Randall, do you have any other agreements like this with cities in Utah?
Do I have any other agreements currently? No, I do not.
Okay. And the second question, so it's a basketball court now. There are no pickleball courts on that site, are there?
Yes, you guys have pickleball lines painted on there already.
Oh, is that
Yeah,
new?
there are 3.
Oh. Interesting. I didn't know that happened.
And
That's
if you
cool.
go through that PowerPoint, there's a representation of that in the PowerPoint there, I believe, right?
Yeah, right here. I guess I'm not sharing, but
I just didn't realize it happened yet. I thought the plan would then be to convert, have some pickleball courts put there. But if they're already there, perfect.
yeah, there already are 3 courts painted there.
Okay. Further questions?
I have a question. Have any of you guys played pickleball yet?
Yeah, a couple times. It's pretty fun.
Yep. Makes my tennis look great.
I have played it. I don't know if I follow all the rules correctly, but it is fun.
Well, we'll make sure you follow the rules.
The first time I played, someone yelled at me, you're like, oh, you can't hit it in the kitchen. And I had no idea what they were talking about.
That's a frequent refrain that I hear, so yeah.
All right, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion on this.
Mayor, I move that the agency enter into the usage agreement with Just Don't Quit Foundation for temporary use of the rec site.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments on the motion? Lori?
Yes. Board Member Gettleman?
Yes.
I couldn't hear you.
Yes, Glover.
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
And Brown?
Affirmative. Did I sound less negative the way I said it than my yeses?
Very
I was
good.
trying to sound more positive on that. A positive yes.
I like it.
It's a 3-syllable yes. Okay. With that, we'll welcome Just Don't Quit Foundation to our pickleball basketball court and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Thank you. See you all next week.
Good night.
Thank you.